Good Thursday afternoon. Another round of 580 Sports Talk coming your way for the next 3 hours. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you from 3 until 6 this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We've got a lot to get to. We've got a jam-packed guest list, as is the norm on Thursday afternoons. Rick Peterson is going to join us later on this hour for our Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. Plenty to get to on the high school hoops front. Final Friday of games before the Christmas 2-week break here in the state of Kansas. So we will talk all about it with Rick Peterson coming up later on this hour. We're also going to lead things off talking about the Chiefs' defense. There's two things in the NFL modern era that indicate usually if you have a good or at least productive defense or a not good or not productive defense. We'll explain why the Chiefs have bucked that trend, but not really in a good way, coming up here in just a moment. We've got some crosstalk with Jake coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. That will, in fact, lead the 4 o'clock hour of the show today. Also, some news on the NCAA administrative front. Well, that sounds really boring. Well, it's actually quite interesting where the NCAA is heading and the fact that they might be making a last grasp effort to maintain relevancy or maybe even maintain existence at this point. We'll explain what we mean coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. We'll preview Thursday Night Football. Mitch Holthus will join us at his regular time, bottom of the 5 o'clock hour. We've also got our What is Wrong with You? Our 580 Sports Talk headlines. And we will, of course, play a little either or over under as we always do on Thursdays coming up on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. You are welcome to be a part of the show today, as always, on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Or you can head over to YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the YouTube account. Click on the live stream for 580 Sports Talk, and you can see Dan and I here today. Watch us, leave your comments, whatever you are thinking about the program today. You are welcome to let us know. But without further ado, Dan, let's get to our lead story today. That is the Kansas City Chiefs defense. So what I was just alluding to a moment ago is that, generally speaking, in the modern NFL, defensively, in an era that is so pass heavy, so pass friendly, so offense friendly, dominated by the quarterback and the big armed quarterback, there are two things you can do to indicate if you're going to have a more productive or just in general more successful defense. One, getting off the field on third downs, and two, not allowing explosive plays. You could also make an argument that the other part of this is getting turnovers. That's always been valuable in football. It also is happening less now than it was, say, even 20, certainly 30 years ago. So those two things, more so now than ever, are more important. Get off the field on third down and don't allow the consistent, big, explosive play. Look at all the best defenses in the league. Philly, pretty good at that. You look at teams like San Francisco. They are tremendous at that. Baltimore, which has played much better defensively in recent weeks than early in the season, they've been good at doing those things in recent weeks. The Chiefs, I would argue, I think pretty easily, have not passed the eye test defensively for a couple of weeks now. They somehow ended up getting 6 sacks against one of the worst teams in the league and won by 1 score. And the game was in doubt until the very end, essentially.
You just look at the final total, right? You gave up 28 points to a Denver team that came in averaging half that and had not exceeded 23 points in a game all season, and it only exceeded 20 points in a game twice. So, yeah, you look at those raw numbers, just the point total up on the board at the end of the game, and you think, yeah, it's a bad day for the Chiefs defense. And the Chiefs defense, I think, would tell you to a man, hey, we weren't good enough. We didn't play well enough. We didn't make enough plays. We didn't execute well enough. We have to be better than we were on Sunday. So, yes, the taste in the mouth right now regarding the Chiefs defense is not maybe the most pleasant one that we've had all year. There have been some highs, but there have also been some lows with this group.
So you would think then, given those characteristics I laid out, the Chiefs are probably bad at getting off the field on third down. They're middle-ish of the pack, and they've dropped a little bit in recent weeks. And you'd think, yeah, they're probably giving up a bunch of big plays. You found a graphic this week, and you asked me yesterday when you found this, Where do you think the Chiefs rank in terms of most explosive plays or quote-unquote big plays allowed this season? That's pass plays of 20 or more yards and rush plays of 10 or more yards. And I assumed they were pretty far to the wrong end of this. I think I guessed third.
Yeah, you guessed third or fourth.
I knew they weren't fourth because I'd glanced over the graphic and saw the Packers had allowed the fourth most, which also, you want to talk about not passing the eye test. But I was wrong about the Chiefs. Not only was I wrong, I was extremely wrong. They have given up the third fewest. Now, there's a massive cliff from the fewest given up, San Francisco, to who's next. That is Los Angeles. That is the Los Angeles Rams in particular. The Chiefs have given up, tied for the third fewest explosive plays in the NFL, tied with Baltimore, who, again, has been playing phenomenally on defense over the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's just a general malaise and a general feeling of, wow, this defense stinks over the last couple of weeks, but that really bucks the trend of, what should indicate a good or a bad or a not successful or a successful defense. But that's almost more worrisome that they aren't allowing these huge explosive plays, and yet they are still struggling defensively.
It's something that Steve Spagnuolo talks about every week, and I'm pretty sure we talk about it just about every week too, particularly against the more potent offenses that the Chiefs face, is you want to stay away from those splash plays, because more often than not, those are the plays on a given drive that lead to points. You have a 30-yard completion, and think about it. Depending on where you take up possession of the football, let's say it's an average drive, you started about the 25. If you have a 30-yard completion, you just need one more first down to be in reasonable field goal range. So big plays generally lead to scoring drives. So there's something to be said for the old adage about bending and not breaking, right? Like, you can give up some underneath stuff. You can give up 6 yards here, 7 yards there, but it's difficult for an offense, even some of the best ones, to sustain 5, 6, 7 yards per play drives all throughout the afternoon or evening, whenever you're playing. That's a tough ask for an offense to stay disciplined and take those underneath yards over and over and over again. And eventually, the more snaps they play, the more chances you've got to put them behind the sticks with a sack, with a penalty, or force a turnover. So there's nothing wrong with the bend but don't break. And the raw numbers about yards per play bear this out as well. Kansas City's a middle-of-the-pack defense when it comes to yards per play allowed. They've allowed 5.4, just about 5.5 yards per play this year. That's tied for 13th in the league with Cincinnati and Miami. It's a shade below Carolina and Washington, and Tampa Bay. That is 10th. Tampa Bay's 10th, 5.2 yards per play allowed. It's just ahead of the Rams and Baltimore, who average an even 5.5 yards per play. And the balance is such that they're about the same against the run as they are against the pass. They average 4.4 yards per rush against. That ties them for 14th in the league with a bunch of teams. Ties with Atlanta, Washington, Minnesota, Dallas, and Denver. And they're 12th in yards per pass allowed, tied for 12th with Washington, right below Carolina and Indianapolis. So you look at yards per play. How many yards per snap are teams gaining against the Chiefs? They're right in the middle of the pack. They're not spectacular, not world beaters, but not a bottom tier defense in that metric either. So what's the difference? Why is it that you would suspect they were worse at allowing the splash plays? Why is it that they feel like they are performing below these standards? It's two things. It's performance in the red zone, where the Chiefs have been bad, and it's forcing turnovers, which the Chiefs have been bad at. Because those are the things, like, don't give up the big play and force a turnover. Like, that is what great defenses do, right? Chiefs are missing half of that equation. Don't give up the big play, and when they get in the red zone, stiffen and force 3 and not 7. And the Chiefs have been among the worst in football at doing that. So those are the two departments that have kind of betrayed what it is that the Chiefs have wanted to do on a full field basis defensively. They talk a big game about not giving up big plays, and for the most part, they walk that walk. But if that's going to be how your defense operates, you have to back that with better performance in the red zone and better turnover performance, and the Chiefs have done neither of those things to this point.
It does make me wonder on the turnover front. Is there anything that can be done to change that fortune between now and whenever the season ends? I mean, we are at a point where you are what we think you are. I don't even know if you are what your record R indicates, but maybe we are far enough into the season that does apply. But, the Chiefs are just not a team that forces turnovers. I don't know exactly what that reason is or why the reason is that they can't do it. Is a level of aggressiveness, which sometimes if you play overly aggressive, you can become susceptible to giving up some of those big plays. That is a balance that can be hard to strike. Being too soft and allowing people to run up to you and giving up a 10-yard or a 10-yard run, 20-yard completion before making a stop, or you get aggressive and you get burned.
And we saw that in the Cincinnati game,
yes,
right? Like
yes.
Thinking back to how the Chiefs defended the pass against Cincinnati, they were pretty terrified of Cincinnati hitting them for those big passing plays that they did in both meetings last season. And they ended up giving up a bunch of repeated 10, 15-yard completions, which wouldn't show up on this graphic because the measure here for a big pass play is 20-plus yards.
I would think, again, and I've made my stance on this clear, but I think I would rather give up big plays after being aggressive than being overly soft with it. Because then you put yourself in a position where if you need to be more aggressive or you have the space to be more aggressive, say, in the red zone, you're not in position to do that. You allowed a team to just waltz right down the field on you. They've got the momentum. They're dictating the clock. They're dictating the pace of the game. You no longer have the sort of leverage you need to suddenly make a play. How many times this year, even if the Chiefs have held a team to a field goal, how many teams can you remember where you can say that they made a play in the red zone defensively? Jalen Watson, pick six. There's number one.
Joshua Williams had an interception in the end zone against the 49ers.
Mm-hmm. Like, is there a great goal line stand that stands out?
Yeah,
is there
end of the first half against Cincinnati.
You had
Dunlap make the play on 4th and 1.
The unfortunate situation there is that you kept letting them get to the red zone. And that was the only stop you made.
Yeah.
That was the one time you were able to stop them, or the one that stands out anyway. It's just a matter of,
and that was a function of playing aggressive. Is Dunlap fired off the ball and was in the backfield almost before the handoff. That's a function of playing aggressively. You can't make that play if you're playing passive, if you're waiting to see, if you're just trying to get push and wait and see. No, Dunlap jumped it, and it paid off. There's a risk versus reward calculation with playing aggressively, and it does feel like the Chiefs have been notably on the wrong side of that calculation too many times this season. The Cincinnati game being probably the best example.
And going back to that Cincinnati game, talking about plays that aren't necessarily explosive by that metric, but are gaining chunks at a time. First drive of the game, it's 11 plays long. Cincinnati scores a touchdown. First two plays only go for 3 yards apiece. Okay, you're looking good. 3rd and 4, very first start of the game. After that, 11 yards, 9 yards. 3 plays later, you give up 8 yards, 13, 17. 4-yard run by Joe Burrow to cap it off. You're already in the red zone facing a second down and goal from the 4-yard line. Second drive of the game for Cincinnati. By the way, that first drive also 11 plays, 75 yards. Second drive, 9 plays, 74 yards. 8, 7. Penalty flag that waved off what would have been an interception. Another penalty flag. 8 yards, 10 yards, 7 yards, 12 yards, touchdown.
Yeah, you're not even getting them into third down in that situation. The one time they did it was the bogus pass interference they called on Trent McDuffie.
And then on third down at the 12-yard line, they scored a touchdown on you. So right. It's the fact that maybe you're not giving up these huge explosive plays when you're playing this softer coverage. And I know you ask any regular Chiefs fan, Joe off the street, they will say, yes, Spags is playing way too soft on the outside. What is with the soft zone has become the ultimate buzzword for deriding Steve Spagnuolo, pro or con. But I think against a really good offense, if that's your strategy that, hey, this team's going to throw the ball a lot, they want to throw it down the field. That's what Joe Burrow loves to do. Go empty, or at least go 4 wide receiver, get in the gun, and move it down the field. That is what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are so good at. And the Chiefs just let it happen. They just said, okay, well, instead of getting 20, go get 10 to 15. And the Bengals said, okay, fine. That's what we will do. And it worked out perfectly for them. So to me, I think these numbers make sense, but again, it's wildly concerning that you can be ranked among some of the best defenses in the league. San Francisco, the Rams, the Ravens, the Saints are up there. The Saints have been bad, but their defense is good. The Jets are up there. The Cowboys, we know how good the Cowboys defense are. Those are all the teams around the Chiefs. Something is not adding up properly, that all these other teams are preventing those big plays and are having great years. Meanwhile, you are allowing a similar number of big plays and yet can't figure it out. But again, the problem, like it's been all year, is I'm not exactly sure what the answer is to that dilemma. For the pass rush, which we talked about, it was essentially for a month and a half period, Chris Jones just took over and was the best defensive player in the NFL. That changed it, because then he was eating up extra blockers. He was just getting home and recording sacks on his own. He would get home. Teams had to change the protection. It was allowing other guys, Mike Dana, Carlos Dunlap, whoever else, they were getting into the backfield. George Karlaftis has been playing pretty well in the last couple of weeks. This part of the defense, though, I don't know, because I think we're at a juncture of the season where you're not going to completely schematically change all that much. You are what you are at this point.
Yeah, and your young guys are gaining experience by the game, but there's still, a lot of rookies out there. Karlaftis and McDuffie. McDuffie lost the first, 6 weeks of the season, so he's really further behind than the rest of his classmates when it comes to game reps. But Joshua Williams also didn't play a whole lot, so he's getting caught up. And Jalen Watson wasn't a day one player, so he's kind of getting caught up a little bit as you go along. Brian Cook's a rookie. Nick Bolton's a year 2. So Willie Gay's year 3. So there's a lot of youth on the defense, but that gets to a point where you're week 15. It's not the excuse that it is in week 2 or week 3. And you have to be able to strike that balance, I think, between, hey, we don't want our young guys to get burnt. We want to give them a simple assignment. We want to keep the play in front of them. We want to stay playing downhill instead of trying to play catch up. There should be a balance between that mindset and we have to go make something happen against these good offenses. If we're trailing, if the momentum is against us, we need to go take the ball away. We need to bow up in the red zone and make sure they get 3 and not 7 on this possession. That's the kind of stuff we haven't seen often enough from the Chiefs this year, because there are a lot of metrics that point to, we've said it from the beginning, this defense doesn't need to be the 85 Bears or the 2013 Seahawks to deliver this team a Super Bowl. It doesn't need to be, because the offense is so good. It just needs to be good enough. And there are enough metrics, there are enough things you can point to that suggest that the Chiefs are capable of that. But the two biggest things that stand out, their inability to turn teams over and their inability to get those stops when they need to get them in the red zone. If I had the answers, I'm sure I would already have fielded several phone calls from one Arrowhead drive. But I don't have those answers.
The issue is I don't think Steve Spagnuolo does either. That is the worrisome part. And again, it's not just the defensive coordinator. It's not just the scheme. It is also, you got to go make plays. And there have been plenty of moments this year where the Chiefs have not gone out and made plays when they've needed to. And we've got a text in here from the 785. Is this Thornhill's last year in KC? That's the kind of thing that may have already been decided to this point. I sort of lean to, yes, it has already been decided.
That's kind of where I would lean too. I mean, safety play has been, what's the best word for this? I would call it underwhelming.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it, like, I've seen bad safety play. Bad safety play is the kind of thing that gets you way up here on this list.
Yes.
Right? Like if Reed and Thornhill and Cook were liabilities, like outright liabilities, then you'd be giving up a lot more 20-plus yard passes, a lot more 10-plus yard rushes, a lot more. So I do not believe that is a group that is a liability, but I think they've been invisible far too often, or at least not visible in the good ways, not visible in the ways you want to be visible. If they've been visible, it's because they've missed a tackle, or they've blown an assignment, or they've blown a coverage. Hasn't happened often, but it has happened. And no player is going to be perfect, but you need a little bit more impact, I think, from that level of your defense. And the Chiefs haven't really had a lot of impact plays this year from that group of safeties. it's good that they haven't been cooked repeatedly and aren't giving up scads of big plays and big gains. That's good. But again, that's maybe a product of how they're being asked to play. A little less aggressive, a little more, trying to keep everything in front of you, play downhill. Whereas, hey, like, say what you will about Tyrann Mathieu. And yes, the best of Tyrann Mathieu, the best years of his football career are behind him at this point. But that's the dude who's going to go try and make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not always happen the right way, but he's going to go try and rip the ball out of somebody's hands. He's going to go try and pick a pass off. There was always the possibility when he was around the ball that something good was going to happen for the defense. And I don't feel that with Juan Thornhill. And I haven't felt like that since he got hurt his rookie year. I thought he was coming on, and that ACL injury, I think, is one that altered the trajectory of his career, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. But my original point, though, to that question was going to be, maybe it's a personnel thing. And that's, the corners are so young, it's way too early to say, well, they're just not ball hawks. They're not guys with ball skills. Like McDuffie, more often than not, has been very good so far this year. I've got no complaints about him. Jalen Watson was a 7th rounder. Josh Williams was a 4th rounder. Those guys have played more than well enough for me to say, yes, there's still plenty there to work with. They're good, solid NFL players at the very least, content with that. But maybe it is an issue at the safety spot that these guys just they don't have good ball skills. They're not going after the ball kinds of guys. Reed, Cook, Thornhill to this point. Who knows? Hard to say. Cook, again, rookie. Hard to say there. But maybe it is a personnel question, and that's something that I don't think you can fix at this part of the year. That might just have to be something you live with and try to survive through until we get to the offseason and eventually into next year. We'll talk more NFL later on in the show. We'll preview Sunday's game with the Texans along with Mitch Holthus. Right now, though, we've got to take a break. We'll come back, play some either or over under here on 580 Sports Talk.
2.5, probably the over, honestly, because I really like bowl season. It's the last gasp of college football. But I guess it depends on what you mean by making time for them.
Like you'll put them on your TV. That's all.
Yeah, that'll probably be the over then. It'll probably be the over.
Also, I misspoke. Tomorrow is the start of bowl season.
Yes.
11:30 or 10:30 a.m. This is Eastern time. So 10:30 a.m. our time, ESPN, UAB versus Miami, Ohio in the used to be Popeyes, the Bahamas Bowl. I don't remember who sponsors it now, but it's the Bahamas Bowl.
Lake Grove Village,
no,
Shire, Illinois.
No, it has an even dumber name now. The Bahamas Bowl is now sponsored by Hometown Lenders. It's even lamer than some random office park in Illinois sponsoring it. Yeah, it is the Hometown Lenders Bahamas Bowl.
Yeah, so it's not like I'm going to tell my wife, hey, hold all my calls and surrender the remote for the next 2 months. It's the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, and I am dying to watch it. No, I don't do that. But like, will I put them on, check them out, particularly if it's an interesting team or an intriguing matchup or a fun venue? I do. I'll watch a lot more of them than I don't watch.
I would go with the over for myself as well. We are going to run into a handful of difficult scheduling days. This Saturday, in fact, being one of them. There are 6 bowl games. And a lot of them are pretty good. Louisville, Cincinnati, Florida, Oregon State, Washington State, Fresno State, and let's see, BYU, SMU, North Texas, Boise State, Southern Miss, Rice. Those are all happening on Saturday. You know what else is happening Saturday? 3 NFL games.
Yeah.
Triple header on NFL Network.
The early game stinks, though, right? Colts Vikings is the early game.
I believe you are correct.
Like, I don't really want to watch either of those teams. I'll check out whatever bowl games popping at that time.
Colts Vikings, Ravens Browns, Dolphins Bills.
Ravens Browns might be a stinker too. Dolphins Bills is going to be like, I want to watch that, but.
Oh, you know what else is happening Saturday that will overlap with that Colts Vikings game? Kansas Indiana basketball.
Oh yeah. Also that.
ESPN 2. Give me a break. I imagine that, the Fenway Bowl will be on ESPN at that time. That's why. I'm trying to watch Kansas, Indiana basketball or Louisville and Cincinnati with new coaches and like no players.
And both teams are on the same sideline and they're not even playing for the keg of nails. It's worthless.
They should bring the rivalry trophies when old rivals play in games.
For sure they should.
They should play for the keg of nails.
Especially when it's as cool as the keg of nails.
Right. What do you have this week?
So it's an either or, but there are several different options for you. You may be aware, my favorite NFL team plays tonight, the Seattle Seahawks, taking on the San Francisco 49ers on Thursday Night Football. What is the best time slot to most enjoy the experience of watching your favorite team? Is it the Thursday night, the Monday night, the Sunday night, the early Sunday window, or the afternoon Sunday window? What is the maximum enjoyment you can get out of just knowing like this is when your team plays? Like irrespective of whether or not they're good, irrespective of whether or not who they're playing, just your team is going to be on the television at this time. What is the maximum enjoyable TV window?
For, I think, all purposes, it is noon on Sunday. You've got all day. You don't have to wait. You don't have to have, because for me, there's a lot of buildup. There's nervousness that comes with it and anxiety that comes with it. Like, I hope we win.
Sure.
I hope we don't embarrass ourselves.
Feel that.
All that. You don't have to wait. If you sleep in on Sundays, like some of us, i.e. me, you're not even up all that long before the game starts. The game happens. If you win, you then get to spend the entire afternoon and evening being on social media or talking to your friends or your spouse, your partner, or whoever about the game and the win and how great it was. Or if you lose, okay, it didn't, whatever, moving on. Afternoon games are on. We've got the Burkhart and Olsen game. We got the Nance and Romo game. We got Sunday Night Football, Monday night. Don't even have to think about it anymore. So for my own well-being, it's the early game.
I like being in prime time. I like the Sunday night game. I think that's exciting to be able to have all that buildup of the day leading up to your game being the one that everybody is watching. I think that's kind of cool, but definitely am swayed by your argument about the noon window as well. Now, growing up, obviously, in Colorado, the Bronco games were always in the late window, unless they were on the road. And rooting for the Seahawks. All of their home games are in the late window, except for the home games are in the late window, except for the ones that unless they play on the road. So I'm very used to that afternoon window being like a window of interest.
Yeah,
that late afternoon window. But I like being in prime time. Thursday is dead last.
It's dead last unless your team stinks.
Then you just get it out of the way.
All right, let's just get it over with. Maybe I got work the next day. I have to go to bed early, or I got something I can do at the same time. Then you don't have to worry about them on Sunday.
We got another vote for the for Sunday noon window from the 785 on the Big O Tires text line. Yeah, you make a really compelling argument about why that one's the best one.
I will say, as much as a lot of people don't like Joe Buck and Troy Aikman when they were on Fox for all those years, there is a big game feel because they called so many big games that I was like, okay, we got the Buck and Aikman game. This is a big deal. This game means something. There's a lot riding on this game.
I am old enough to remember when Sunday night football was kind of a blow-off game.
Yeah.
And Monday night was the primetime window you wanted to be in because that was cool. That was an event. Monday night football was on ABC. It was a huge freaking deal every week. And it meant something to be on Monday Night Football because you were not guaranteed a spot on the Monday night rotation. So I am old enough to remember that. Remember when Sunday night wasn't that cool. Now Sunday night is kind of the big night. It's kind of I overtaken Monday night over the last 20 years. But no, Thursday night will never feel like that. Doesn't matter who's broadcasting it, where it is broadcast. Yeah. Like I'm gonna watch the game tonight, and the only good thing about the Thursday night game is if you win, then you have that good winning feeling, and then it comes back to you on Sunday. Like, hey, I don't have to stress today. My team already bagged a win.
We already won.
Yeah.
We've got another vote on YouTube for the Sunday night window. And then one comment that says, haven't the Chiefs had more non-noon games than noon? Yes, by a lot.
I think this is only their third noon kick of the year coming up on Sunday.
I believe you're correct about that.
Jacksonville was a noon kick, and there was one other noon kick.
I don't recall. We'll have to look that up during the break. We have to take a commercial break. Rick Peterson will join us next for the high school whip around here on 580 Sports Talk. time for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round here on 580 Sports Talk with our good friend Rick Peterson from TopSports.News. Head to TopSports.News for all the best coverage of all of our preps teams and Washburn here in the capital city and around Shawnee County. You can also find Pistol's handle on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, first thing I've got for you today. I know that you have to account for level of competition here, but did you ever expect to see a 59-point win for the Highland Park girls this season?
No, and you do have to account for the competition, but like Robert Brown said, hey, we'll take a win any day of the week, and it was our first win of the season. And Amelia Ramsey had a monster game, 27 points, 24 rebounds, so a lot of smiles for the Scots.
I know that it's a down year, to say the least, for Southeast out of Kansas City, but 27 points and 24 rebounds, Pistol, that's one of the best individual efforts I can remember, at least over the last handful of years, if not longer beyond that. I know she's just a sophomore, but she is such a focal point of that Highland Park team, and it appears, at least early this season, even with that being Highland Park's first win, like Amelia Ramsey's only getting better.
Yeah, and what I like about her the most probably is the fact how hard she goes to the boards. You know, if you get she averaged nearly a double-double last year, and I think she's got a good chance at averaging a double-double this year. And if you get a lot of rebounds, you get a lot of shots, not only for yourself but for your teammates.
24 rebounds and still surpassed that in points with 27. What an effort for Amelia Ramsey and for the Lady Scots earlier this week against Kansas City Southeast. We should talk about the Highland Park boys as well, Pistol. They're now up to the number 2 ranking in the KBCA poll for this week, number 2 in Class 5A, and they just continue to roll as well. They took down Southeast 85-57, and they are rolling to start off this season.
Yeah, and that was a Southeast team that I was pretty impressed with their talent. They had some good individual talent, but, Highland Park just took it to them. They were without Quentin Adams the other night and still just took it to them. At one point, Bo Aldrich had 3 slams in a row, and they're very, very good. I mean, I've been impressed with them from last year, and I'm very, very impressed with them going into this year.
I know it is far too early to start talking about postseason and state tournament and all of that, but I would imagine, and this goes back to a couple weeks ago when we were sort of previewing the season, I would imagine that a team that is returning all but one player, I believe that's the total, every single player except one from last year returning from Highland Park, I would imagine they're going to be in the conversation in Class 5A all the way to the very end this year.
Yes, I think they will be. I will say this. I think 5A is a very deep class.
Yeah.
Cape and Mount Carmel, St. James Academy, DeSoto, Topeka West, Baser Linwood's going to come out of their little funk. Once Aaron Davis gets back, Seaman can be competitive. So it's just a really deep class. So, whoever wins that is going to really have to be at their best.
Speaking of Seaman, let's go to the Vikings next as we continue the our Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round here on 580 Sports Talk. Our 580 Preps game of the week will take us to Seaman tomorrow night as they take on DeSoto. Pregame at 5:30 right here on 580 WIBW. Seaman versus DeSoto. The Vikes just picked up a loss earlier on this week against a very athletic Kansas City Piper team. And you mentioned Aaron Davis. Sounds like he might be on his way to returning fairly soon. How important is that going to be, Pistol, for that Seaman boys team to get another veteran back with so many new faces in their rotation this year?
Go back to last year. They're sitting at 7-7 about the time that he came back, and they didn't lose again. So he was a big difference maker last year on their run to the state title. And, hey, they had a lot of pieces to go with him last year that they don't have this year. But, with Caden Bonner and Aaron Davis, that's a good start. And I think they would really, really start to turn things around when he gets back.
Speaking of number 2 ranked teams, let's flip it again back to the girls' side here. The Seaman Lady Vikings, they are playing out of their minds early this season. We knew they were going to be a really good team yet again this year, Pistol, but they are looking as good as anybody in the city, if not in the entire area so far this season. off to an undefeated start to the year. They blew out Savannah, Missouri last week, picked up a big win over Piper on Tuesday night as well. And they can just come at you in so many different ways. We know Matt Tinsley's teams are always going to defend among the best of the best, but they've got so many offensive threats now too, with Becker, Stahlbomber, just to start the group. That is a very dangerous Seaman team. And again, they look even better than I thought they might be to start this year.
I would agree with that. You knew what they had coming back. I didn't obviously know about Maddie Gregg until I saw her. She really just adds another component. And I think we'll know a lot more about them after tomorrow night, because they're playing a state-ranked team in DeSoto. And, DeSoto lost to Topeka High, but they're one of 5A's better teams. So it'll be a good test for the Vikings.
Yeah, storylines abound in that doubleheader coming up tomorrow. You've got number 2 versus number 6 in the girls' game, and then you've got a rematch of the state championship game in the boys' game. So that is going to be a lot of fun up at Viking Gymnasium tomorrow. Another team I wanted to get to here, Pistol, also from Class 5A. We saw them earlier this week on our Tuesday Night Hoops doubleheader broadcast. Shawnee Heights with a sweep of Baser Linwood. We'll start with their girls as well, and it has been a very strong start to the year for Bob Wells' group. And again, this is another team that just has so many different weapons that they can attack you with, especially on offense.
Yes, and I think what they've learned, particularly with Taylor Rottinghouse, is that defense can set up your offense. And when I didn't see him Tuesday, but I saw him last Friday, and Rottinghouse probably had 6, 8 steals, turned a lot of them into points, and that got them kind of going. And then, when you got Breezy Kennedy and Amari Dobie, they're just getting deeper and deeper. And, their one loss was 4 points to DeSoto, if I remember right.
Yeah, that was all the way back in the first game of the season. So they're off to a great start to the year. The Shawnee Heights boys as well. Very impressive win for them in the nightcap on Tuesday. I know that's a Baser Linwood team that's just getting their 2 best players back from injury. They were on a bit of a minutes restriction on Tuesday. But to win by 16 points over a top 10 team in the state, and to get one of their best offensive players going, Brennan Dodge, who's had a slow start to the season coming off some injuries of his own. He puts up 18 points in the win. I would imagine to see the ball go in for him and for Jarrett Sanchez has to be really encouraging for Ken Darting, given that he's been a little bit concerned about their offense to start the season.
A little bit concerned? Okay.
to put it lightly.
Yeah, I was going to say, every time I talk to it, that subject quickly comes up. So, no, they're never going to be a team. They're not going to be a team like Highland Park that's going to hang 80 on you. But they can, if they get all their weapons going, like Brennan and like Sanchez. And, I've seen Jaden Holly came off the bench and had a great game the game before. So, yeah. With their defense, if they can hold the team, get into 60s, let's say, they're going to win a lot of games. And so I think the other night was a real good bounce back win for them after losing at Topeka West.
Yeah, Jaden Holly with 15 and 12 in a losing effort against Topeka West, but that was one of the more impressive individual efforts we've seen so far this year. We're talking to Rick Peterson a few more minutes with Pistol here on our Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Thursday afternoon, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. You can find Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick, and you can find all of his tremendous work over at topsports.news. We've hit on a few of the big names from Class 5A, Pistol. Around the rest of the city, boys and girls, what are some of the other things that have really stood out to you? I know this is the short, quote-unquote, half of the schedule because we've got the 2-week Christmas break coming up here starting next week. But what are some of the other things that have really stood out to you about city basketball this year?
Well, I think, everybody was, not everybody, but I think some people were a little concerned about Washburn Rural girls after they went 1-2 in the Hayes shootout. They came back with a really good win the other night. They're starting to work some big. They got Chloe Carlton back now, and they're starting to work in newer, younger people. I think they're going to be fine, and that was a big win for them over Shawnee Mission Northwest. I think Washburn Rural boys are going to be good. They're again, just kind of getting all their pieces together. Caden Ballard's been a good addition for them. And, and then Topeka High girls, to me, is another team that stands out. they just seem to be pretty much business as usual. They lost to a really good Wamego team out of the gate, and now they've won 5 straight, I believe it is, and they play tonight. So there's a lot of good teams in Shawnee County, and I think right now that first part of the season that you talked about is just kind of getting your legs under you.
And for that Topeka High girls team, speaking last week during our coaches club to Brittany Redmond, I mean, she's taking over a team that has been to state 4 years in a row. And she said, yeah, there's some things I'd like to clean up. There's some things I'd like to do a little bit differently to take them from just a good high school team to the next level. Well, Pistol, they already felt like they were kind of a next level program. So it feels like Brittany Redmond's trying to raise that ceiling even higher, which should be a pretty frightening notion for the other teams in 6A.
Yeah. And I think Brittany, I go all the way back to covering her in high school. So I've known her for a lot of years. And I think she wants to, she's got a lot of pride. She's been at the college level. She knows what it takes to compete at the college level. And I just think she wants to make sure she puts that stamp on her program. And the biggest thing, and I think what you're talking about, not be satisfied. Always be looking for more.
One other player I wanted to mention, and you brought up his team a moment ago, Pistol, Jack Batchelor at Washburn Rural. That's a rural team that's looking to bounce back after a little bit of a down year last year. They've got their first-year head coach in Alex Hutchins, and they are off to a great start, like you mentioned. And Jack Batchelor, we know, was already one of the best players on that team, but it really feels like he has started to come into his own to open up his senior season.
Well, and what he needs to do the most is be a leader, be a leader for that team. Say, hey, this is my team. I'm going to lead you. I'm going to hit my shots when I got them, but I'm also going to share the ball. I think he will be a very good senior leader for that team. And let's look at that. And it's a lot of them that are on the football team as well. They got a lot of athletes on that team, and I think that'll pay. They've got off to, what are they now, 2-2 maybe. And that's a very credible start, and I think they'll be looking to take that next step particularly once we get back from the break.
Yeah, and speaking of those crossover athletes, Wyatt Conklin averaging double figures in points to start the season as well. Rick Peterson joins us every single Thursday, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, for our Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. Check out his work at topsports.news. Find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, where are you headed to tomorrow night?
I think I'm going to be sitting right beside you.
That's what we love to hear. Well, we will see you up in North Topeka, Pistol. Talk to you then.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
That is Rick Peterson from topsports.news, the absolute best in the business, bar none, here in Topeka. With that, that'll do it for the 3 o'clock hour. We'll come back, talk to Jake to lead off the 4 o'clock hour with a little crosstalk. The future of the NCAA took another step today. We'll explain what that means. Plus, we will find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. All that and more is coming up next hour here on 580 Sports Talk. now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk just getting underway. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you for another 2 hours on the program today. Thank you so much for stopping by and spending some of your afternoon with us. If you missed the first hour of the show, you can head to our website, 580wibw.com. Hover over the podcast tab right in the middle of the page. A menu will pop up. Click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the hour-by-hour breakdown of the show in podcast form. Our website is also where you can find, a direct link to our YouTube live video stream. That's right. Now, all you have to do is go to 580wibw.com, and then right in the middle of the page, you will be able to find the link to our YouTube feed. All you have to do is just click on it, and boom, it can play for you right from the website. Or you can click through it, and you can end up on the actual youtube.com page. Then you can engage in the comments section as well. So, more ways than ever before to get involved with 580 Sports Talk. Of course, the YouTube comments are open. You can also chime in on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. Later on this hour, we've got our What Is Wrong With You. We'll find, I said earlier it was going to be our weekly champion. I've been so off all week. My schedule, my brain has been so off. We are not finding our weekly winner today. We will find our weekly winner coming up tomorrow. Today, though, we will find who will be the reigning weekly winner going into the championship tomorrow. Our current winner for the week, still the gentleman who called the police 2,000 plus times in 9 days to harass them and tell them he didn't like them.
Call them tax thieves.
Tax thieves, yeah.
Among the nicer things he called them. Among the repeatable things he called them.
I knew the police would get me someday. Well, yeah, I mean, you brought that on yourself, pal. Yeah. So we'll see if either of our two stories today can overcome that one. We will also chat a little bit about the future of the NCAA coming up today. We know who the new president of the NCAA is. Is it going to make a difference? Is it going to be the thing that keeps the NCAA in existence as it is currently formed? We'll get to that coming up later on in the show today. But right now, we welcome in Jake Lebahn, the host, one of the hosts of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW every single day from noon until 3.
Represented on video today by his disembodied voice.
Yeah. No camera on Jake at the moment.
I can use my phone.
Yes. Are you able to get there? Are you finding?
No, you guys, I don't have the.
Well, I figured you would have logged in on your phone and then you could do it. You could have said at some point, send me the link so I can get into the video. I thought you were going to log in yourself and
no, I was just going to wait for the link.
Okay. And then that would have been great to know.
And then if I get the link, boom.
Great. Good to know.
By the way, why would you want to be the president of the NCAA?
That was going to be my lead question at 4:30 is why would you want that job?
Why would you want to be that job?
Probably decent paycheck.
Hey,
good honestly, opening line at parties.
Hey, real quick. What's the difference between Roger Goodell and the commissioner of the NCAA? Like, you're literally the same person. All you do is just take heat if you're the commissioner of, or if you're the president of the NCAA. Like, nobody likes you. Everybody thinks that you're doing it wrong.
The difference would be
several $1 million.
Yeah. The commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, he has heat on him that comes from the United States congressional houses.
Right.
While also like, hey, you're going to get sued. You've got all these other things going on. But they're not actively trying to like tear apart the fiber of the NFL and the entire way it does business. Right. I'm pretty sure the United States government actually wants the NCAA itself to crumble.
Yes.
That's your difference.
Yeah. The Supreme Court is an existential threat to the existence of the NCAA, much more so than it is a threat to the existence of the NFL.
That's true.
That's probably the big difference for you. You told me right as we were coming on the air, you and Fulton spent a large portion today talking about regifting. It's apparently National Regifting Day.
Yes, correct.
I was not aware of that. That seems a little bit odd 10 days before Christmas. I would think, I mean, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah,
like,
it's
too close to Christmas. Now I got to come up with something.
You got to get to do the regift.
Do you regift?
No.
Me either.
No,
I never have.
If it was given to me, then either I'm going to find a way to make some use of it or I'm going to return it to the store and get something else that will be useful to me. I'm not knocking it. Just that's kind of my get down.
I don't normally do that, but kids, it's different.
Okay.
Because we got a gift last year for Christmas.
Okay.
For Lawson.
Okay.
We forgot about it.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm trusting you when you got, uncles and aunts and grandparents. And, I mean, you get a lot of crap.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. We just forgot about it.
So this was a gift you were giving your son, or that someone else gave
Someone
him?
else gave my son. And so now, I suppose it doesn't really fit Bryn's personality, my daughter. And so we've got this gift that's in the box. It hadn't even been used.
Yeah.
And so we're totally giving that to somebody else.
Yeah, I understand that.
So
I think that's reasonable.
That's why plus it's a year later. So it's not like an immediate re-gift.
Yeah.
That's
like
true.
It's like a...
What if it's something that's gone out of style, though? What if it's like version 1.0 or something?
No, it's not. No, they won't. No.
All right.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah, I guess I can understand that. Are you giving it back to the person who... Are you going to turn on the volume on your phone? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, give me some time, man.
Now we're fixed. We've got a shot of Jake. All right, there we go. Jake's on camera now. So if you're watching on the YouTube live stream, you can now see all three of us.
Yeah, there we go. I left my laptop in my car real quick. So.
Hey, it happens sometimes. Yes, wave to the camera. Again, if you are want to see all of us on screen right now, you can do so on YouTube. Just search for 58 Sports on 580 WIBW. You can also go to our website, 580WIBW.com, and the link is right there. Have you ever done like web design before we started doing all this stuff online? Like, have you ever done anything web related?
Not much. I think you can still hear it, can't you?
Yes, we can't.
Yeah, you have to turn it all the way down.
I have. It's all the way down. I don't know why it's not working.
I couldn't tell you. I can still hear myself. I am talking on one side of the table and can hear Jake on the other. You hear my voice in Jake's phone on the other side.
Is there a mute button like there is on the...
Yeah, I got it muted.
On the phone.
You know who I am right now? I'm like every 70-year-old dad. Like dad.
Hey, I want to do How do I do the FaceTimes? I want to do the FaceTimes.
Do you know how to post videos to Facebook?
All right, this ain't going to work, so I'm just going to close that. Okay, there we go.
Okay, well, we no longer have Jake's video. So
I can't figure it out.
If you're watching on the stream, you're back to just having Dan and I on video and
I'm
Jake's voice.
Yeah.
That's fine. Hey, Chiefs defense. If you had to guess, Dan found this on a graphic yesterday. If you had to guess where the Chiefs ranked in terms of explosive plays given up, big plays, I think was the phrase.
10-yard runs, 20-yard passes, big plays.
Let's say 1 is the fewest, 32 is the most. Where would you think the Chiefs ranked?
I'll say actually the fewest. I'll go on the fewest side because they just get driven on, man. They just kind of slowly but surely get it driven on them.
All right, give us a number.
All righty. It's either one or the other. I don't think they give up a ton of big plays. So I'll say 30. Was it 32 is the fewest?
That's the fewest. Or 32 is the most given up. That's
okay.
worse.
So I'll say like 7.
Pretty darn close.
Yeah, tied for third.
Yeah, they don't give up a lot of big plays. They just you matriculate the ball on them. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, we went back to the Bengals game and looked at just the first 2 drives that the Bengals scored touchdowns on. A lot of 8, 11,
a lot of missed
14. Yeah, a lot of that. But I don't think, I was saying this earlier, I don't think that there's anything you can really do at this point structurally that's going to change it. I mean, we're into week 15.
Just have to make more plays and be better in the red zone.
Yeah, the red zone. Because that's what the Chiefs did in 2012 or 2012. Ooh, no, they didn't. They were terrible in 2012. No, like first pick bad. You have to be better in the red zone, and if you do that, that's what they did in 2019 and 2020. That's why their defense was 12th and 13th in points per game allowed, and that's all that matters. When you got the offense, it's just points per game. Field goals are victories. Very, very simple. So I that doesn't stun me when you think back and look at it, because your initial reaction is, oh yeah, they're terrible at it. Yeah, they give up all sorts of plays. I mean, they didn't even in the game against the Broncos. It's just there's a lot of short ones, missed calls, all that good stuff.
I initially thought they had probably given up a lot. I probably would have had a better guess had I thought more critically about it, but I was like, oh no, they probably give up a ton because crappy defenses, give up a lot of big plays. They don't force turnovers. They struggle on third down.
And that's what we think about the Chiefs, right? We think it's a bad defense. There are a lot of metrics or statistical markers that say they're probably closer to average. Like on a yards per play basis, they're right about in the middle of the league, both in terms of the pass and against the run. But it's the stuff that buttresses all of that the Chiefs don't do well, and that is the red zone and turnovers. If they were closer to average when it came to creating turnovers, I think we'd think a lot higher of this defense. If they were closer to average when it came to red zone performance, I think we'd think a little higher of this defense. But they've been one of the poorest teams in the league in both of those departments, and that has dragged the performance, the observable performance, the points on the board performance of this defense down.
I would also venture to say that the third down defense, specifically over the last couple of weeks, has been maybe a bigger bugaboo than anything else. Going into the Bengals game, so 2 games ago, the Chiefs were 12th in the NFL, toward the good side, 12th best in the NFL in third down conversion rate allowed. So not great, but better than mediocre, like somewhat okay, good, slightly above average. They have dropped 8 spots in 2 games.
Yeah.
They are now tied for 20th in the league, along with New Orleans. They're now worse than Cincinnati, which hasn't moved. They've been 19th now 3 weeks in a row, 19th at allowing third downs to be converted. The Chiefs are 2 spots ahead, well, technically 1 spot ahead of the Panthers. They're behind the Texans, who they are going to play coming up this weekend. So I would almost venture to say that in the last couple of weeks, more than anything else, because it's not the pass rush. They got home against Denver plenty in that game, 6 sacks, like we mentioned. More so than the big plays. The fact that they can't get off the field on third down, that dropping off like 6 percentage points or 4 percentage points or something in 2 games is really bad at this stage of the year.
That, and they don't force turnovers.
Yeah, which again is something that I don't know that you're going to end up getting changed at this point of year, because they don't play aggressively on defense.
Well, that, and they've got one game changer. That's what we have discussed, is that they're crazy young. They play 5 rookies. I mean, if you want to count, Leo Chanel as 6, okay. But they have 5 rookies, and then all their free agents, Derek Nottie, technically Frank Clark, Juan Thornhill. Well, he's not Juan, but Justin Reed. Like, they're not any good.
That's what we were talking about the safety play earlier. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not like they have 3 Daniel
Sorensens
out there, but they're just not impactful.
They're not playmakers.
No.
I mean, Reed has not made a play, so to speak, like all year pretty much. Thornhill hasn't done that. Dan pointed out it sucks for him, but it's true. He hasn't done that since he got hurt. And he had a really good rookie year. It looked like he and Matthew were going to be one of the best safety tandems in the league. He tears his ACL. He has never been the same player.
Never been the same.
Which really, really stinks for him.
He's like Boobie Miles.
But, the rookies on the outside, nice reference. Like, Trent McDuffie's been really good overall. Williams has been good. Watson has been good. A lot of promise with those guys. They haven't taken the ball away, though.
Yeah. And they're rookies. Rookies don't look to take the ball away. You know who looks to take the ball away? The 4th pick overall. There's a gigantic difference between top 12 and even like the 24th pick. I mean, how many sacks did Chris Jones have his rookie year?
Wasn't many.
I don't know the number at all.
Right? Because Chris Jones elite, right?
Yeah.
He had 2. It's hard to produce if you are a rookie, unless you are a top 10 pick. Look at Micah Parsons. Look at Sauce Gardner. I mean, it's hard to be super impactful when you're picking at 31st.
Yeah.
The JJ Watts and the TJ Watts are the exception, not the rule. And I think that's part of the reason why, they don't get off on third down. And as a rookie, you're looking at this. You're looking at, all right, I need to be in the right spot, not I'm going to go make a play. That's how
The more you play, the more your instincts take over.
Exactly.
And the more you're able to, within the structure of what you're being asked to do, make decisions that lead you to be in the spot to make the play.
Yeah. I was concerned when they traded Fenton, and we talked about going into the middle end and into the playoffs with so many young corners. I talked about on the show many times, I like these pieces. That's just a lot of inexperience you're going to have going up against some really good teams, some really good offenses between now and the end of the season, whenever the end comes. Apparently, we didn't need to be concerned about the play of the corners. It was the corners covering up for the play of the safeties.
Yeah, how about
and
that?
making them look better. I'm going to count that as a win.
I'm going
to count that as being right.
That's why we don't play this game on spreadsheets. You never know.
You talked to our friend Paul Meyerberg today, did you not?
Yes.
How was he?
He's excellent.
He's the best.
Excellent. Had some great stories about Mike Leach.
I can imagine.
I just said, hey, what about Mike Leach? He said one time at 1:20 in the morning, my wife comes in and says, who are you talking to? And she goes, oh, I'm on the phone with Mike Leach. I'll be in when I'll be in. Because he goes, I wasn't going to not talk to Mike Leach because he'd call me and he'd want to talk about, some random thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you just sit there and you talk back and forth. But he called the fact that if he doesn't get in because of that arbitrary 60% winning percentage rule, that throw away the college football Hall of Fame. He goes, every single high school runs this unless you're in the triple option. He goes, every single NFL team. And he even pointed, he goes, he was going to coach till he was 75. He was 61. He goes, the world and the college football world is in a much sadder place because of Mike Leach. So it was really, really fun to talk to Paul about that.
Two real quick things. For one, I would imagine, and I might be wrong about this, but I would imagine they will give. No, I take that back. I actually am less likely thinking that they are going to put him in. Howard Schellenberger's not in.
No, he mentioned that too. He goes, it's a joke that Howard Schellenberger is not in the College Football Hall of Fame.
He's one of the most important coaches in the history of college football. Yeah. The other thing, did you guys see the story that Bruce Feldman posted? It must have been yesterday.
I have not.
About Mike Leach. He's got a ton of me. He
wrote the book.
Yeah, he wrote the book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He spent more time with Mike Leach than any national writer. So he told a story about how when he was at Texas Tech, it was one night a week, they would take the entire team to the movies. Practice was over, whatever. They'd all go to the movies. And you had to sign up beforehand.
That's like 100 people.
Yeah, well, it's Mike Leach. Like, you do weird, fun things, and the school pays for it, I guess. So they had to sign up beforehand, but they'd go and they'd say, just go to the movies, go to whatever movie you want at the Cineplex. But the one rule is no horror movies and no something else. And the horror movie rule was some guys will be scared, so they're gonna feel like they have to go to impress their teammates, and then they're going to be scared and not feel good about themselves. So no horror movies. So they all sign up to go to these movies. Mike Leach and Bruce Feldman, who's spending the night with him, they go to see a movie that Mike Leach described as vampires, but they're nice. So this is like the mid to late 2000s. You might be able to tell where this is going. There are 2 seats open in the whole theater. Bruce Feldman and Mike Leach sit down in them. Every other person in the theater is a prepubescent screaming girl. Vampires but nice was code for Twilight.
Oh yeah.
And they both hated it. They hated the movie. And they walk out, and they said that the lobby was just full of teenage boys waiting for their girlfriends to come out of the movie. And they're like, oh my God, it's Mike Leach. He saw Twilight. Like, why? And Leach said, my biggest concern after seeing that movie was we definitely had players that signed up to see it and didn't go. Like, we definitely had members of this team who signed up to go watch that movie.
Pretty good.
I thought that was really funny. What's coming up tomorrow?
We are going to talk to Stephanie Stradley, who covers the Texans.
For the Chronicle, yeah.
And then we are going to talk with Ken Swanson of the KC Sports Network.
Good stuff. We'll talk to you tomorrow from noon to 3.
All right. Have a good one.
That is Jake Lebahn. That is Crosstalk. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back on the other side of this break. We've got What Is Wrong With You. It's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. What the hell is right? It's time for What is Wrong with You here on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Two news stories going head-to-head today, trying to take down our current winner, the gentleman in Japan, 67-year-old gentleman who called the police 2,060 times in the span of 9 days to call them tax thieves, to otherwise harass them, called them big, stupid a-holes. That is a quote.
Yeah.
And then said, yeah, I knew the police would come for me one day. Online commenters referred to this man as, sounds like an old man with too much time and no hobbies.
What took you lazy thieves so long?
That's a special kind of hobby. Think of what you could do with the time and energy it takes to make 2,060 abusive calls. Well, you can make 2,060 abusive calls. There you go right there. My story for today and What is Wrong with You will take us to Albuquerque, New Mexico. We don't go to New Mexico all that often for our What is Wrong with You stories.
We don't.
We're going to Bernalillo County, where officers say there was a fight on a bus, and officials allege that the incident escalated and involved a sword slashing.
Oh, boy.
On Tuesday, just before 4:30 in the afternoon, deputies were sent to the corner of Edith and Montano Streets, where they found the victim in this case bleeding heavily. According to a criminal complaint, the bus driver had told deputies that Brian Lee was on the bus with a sword, and the driver told him he was not allowed to ride anymore. Lee and the victim apparently got into an argument before Lee attacked them. The victim, along with other passengers, pushed Lee off of the bus. Authorities say that Lee then came back onto the bus with his sword and slashed the victim. Lee was arrested and charged with aggravated battery and concealing identification.
He's just carrying a sword around?
There's the number one question. Why? Why are you just milling around with a sword?
Got it on his person? You know, on the bus? Like, did he need that on the bus? Did he
Apparently.
feel like he needed that for protection? Is it, you know, I keep that thing on me.
That thing is a katana. I don't know. I have no idea why he had that. I would love to know what kind of sword. Are we talking like he had a whole broadsword? Are we talking like a scimitar? What are we talking here?
Yeah, like, I can't imagine it was something that the other passengers didn't notice.
Like you're not sitting next to sword guy on the bus.
No.
I would not
I don't
go
want
anywhere near him.
I don't want any smoke with sword guy. Like, he's trying to pick a fight with me. Just, dude, come on, man. I'm on public transportation. I'm just trying to get to my stop. Please leave me alone.
I'm just trying to get home. You know, it's right about 4:30, so it's probably right after the end of a shift for, you know, the early shift folks.
Do you think he hit him with a glove? I challenge you to a duel.
Wow.
Slap him with the glove.
Again,
I demand satisfaction.
like buses aren't that big. How much room do you have to actually swing and slice with your sword? That's why I want to know what it actually looked like. Unfortunately, we don't have a picture of the sword here.
We do not.
What do you have for today?
We're going to Vegas. What happens in
All
Vegas
right.
stays in Vegas, but not this story where we have a woman charged with stealing a $17,000 watch and trying to smuggle it out of the hotel inside of herself. A woman who was in Las Vegas for a court hearing regarding theft charges in June was arrested again for stealing a $17,500 watch. 33-year-old Sarah Richards of Baltimore faces charges of theft of over $100,000 in value, residential burglary, grand larceny of $100,000 or more, administering drugs to aid in the commission of a felony, and grand larceny between $5,000 and $25,000. This is what went down on June 4th. Police responded to a hotel on Las Vegas Boulevard. Guest had woken up to his belongings missing after taking an unknown woman to his room.
Come on, man.
The alleged victim told police he suspected he'd been drugged by the suspect, later to be named as Richards, sometime between midnight and 7 a.m., and he believed she stole his Patek Philippe wristwatch. I only know how to pronounce that because I listen to rap music. Otherwise, I would be like, Patek Philippe? No, Patek Philippe. A Patek Philippe wristwatch valued at $146,000. He said he met Richards that night and they bought a bottle of champagne to drink while gambling. He said Richards carried the bottle the entire time, even when it was out of view. The alleged victim recalled the female said she needed help with money, and he offered her $1,400. He tried to retrieve some money from the safe in his hotel room, but couldn't remember the code, so he contacted security, who assisted him in opening the safe. He gave her the $1,400, then locked the safe again. He fell asleep, woke up, and found that his watch was missing. Investigators went to his room, collected the champagne bottle and glasses for testing. The next day, an undercover officer was approached by Richards at a nearby hotel. A records check at the time showed Richards had outstanding warrants for prostitution. She was eventually taken into custody. So that's before. He remembered meeting the man and taking her money, but denied stealing the watch. Booked for grand larceny, posted bail, was scheduled to appear for her preliminary hearing on Monday. On Sunday, police responded to a hotel on South Las Vegas Boulevard. A caller to 911 told authorities a woman, again later identified as Richards, had stolen items from his room and he could not get them back. Security found Richards and, despite searching her, could not find a stolen $17,500 Rolex. The alleged victim told investigators he had met Richards in the hotel and later went to his room to drink wine. She said he should take his Rolex off because it would cut her if he left it on. The man said he began to feel tired after Richards insisted he drink more wine and began to doze off. He later noticed his watch was missing and confronted Richards about it. Richards panicked, he said, and left the room, walking down the hall at a different gait than before, taking shorter steps. When officers checked the room, they did not find the watch, but did find the man's wine glass with a white powdery substance at the bottom. They asked Richards as to why the police would be called to the hotel. She insisted she did not have the Rolex, but a metal detector passed over her, kept going off around what we'll call her nether regions. Richards agreed to take the watch out. She stated that we were going to find it anyways at jail, and she did not want to go through the hassle.
Well, I guess you're going to get it anyway.
So her next court hearing is scheduled for January 10th. Yep. Put it in the old jail wallet.
Oh my God. Man. Ew. You don't know where that watch has been.
Yeah, I don't think you want the watch anymore after that.
No. I mean, clearly this woman has some issues. I think that's fair to say. What if so much could go wrong doing that there. That makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
I don't like it either.
By the way, it's Patek Philippe. Is that what you said?
Patek Philippe, yeah.
Patek Philippe?
Patek Philippe, I think.
They don't put the prices of their watches on their website.
Right.
So that tells you all you need to know about how expensive they are. And it tells me that I know I cannot afford one.
Yeah.
They're very nice. I'm not a watch wearer, though. I have no reason to wear a watch. You know what I do? I pull my phone out, look at it. You know, the iPhones, you don't even need to touch them. Yeah, it'll just open up on its own.
Right. I've never been a big watch guy either, even before the proliferation of smartphones that just have the time whenever you need it. I was never a big watch guy. Like, I get why they are signifiers of wealth and why people of certain means might like to collect them or have one like really nice one with diamonds and gold and such. Like I certainly get the appeal of having a big piece on your wrist that is a signifier again of the fact that you're balling out of control. Like I understand that. I understand that compulsion, but $146,000 watch is outrageous.
Okay, here's one you can get for $45,000.
Oh,
that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, bargain.
Altogether reasonable.
When I was younger, I had a watch. I'd gotten it as a gift, and I would only wear it when I went out on dates. I was like, oh, yeah, this will be my nice.
This is your date watch.
Yeah, I'm going to get my Volkswagen washed, and then I'm going to put on a watch. That's going to be classy me.
No, I respect that. There's so many luxury brands that I only know because of the music I listen to. Like there's Richard Mille. That's another fancy watchmaker, I think.
I feel like we had a What Is Wrong With You involving one of those watches at one
Richard
point.
Mille? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm certain we did at one point because I said, wow, I didn't know watches came this expensive. This wins for today.
Yeah, it does.
I'm grossed out. Ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
I saw the headline. I sort of assumed that she swallowed it.
No.
And
no, did not.
No.
Not what happened.
I'm I'm appalled, to be completely honest with you. That is gross. That certainly wins for today. Does that win over our police harasser?
I have to admit, I am still very much enjoying the police harasser story, and I'm enjoying it a lot more than I would enjoy ever having to think about where that woman put a Rolex ever again. So let's keep it rolling with the old crank who prank called the cops.
We've got a comment here on the YouTube stream from Vance that says, "Thank God dinner is a good 2 hours away." Yeah, no kidding. Oh, that is gnarly. That is our retaining winner then, the police harasser over the phone from Japan. He is our winner again on What Is Wrong With You. We'll see if he can win the week coming up tomorrow. Right now, we've got to take a commercial break. We'll talk some NCAA coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. .41 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you. Thank you so much for spending some of your Thursday afternoon with us. Mitch Holthus is going to join us in just under an hour to preview Chiefs versus Texans coming up this weekend. Did have some college sports news and notes for you today. It is official. Deuce Vaughn has been named a consensus All-American yet again. Got enough. I don't remember what the exact rules are. I think we have them in our in the press release, but he did receive enough first-team All-American nominations to be officially named a consensus All-American for the second straight year for Deuce Vaughn. How is that? Chris Canty is the only other K-State player in program history to be a two-time consensus All-American. That's pretty freaking cool. That is awesome for Deuce Vaughn. So that's very cool.
Great stuff and well-deserved for sure.
Also, this not on the field, well, relates to on the field, but Some NIL news for KU players. How about this? The Legacy Restaurant Group, they're one of our partners here at Alpha Media Topeka as well. They own a lot of the Wendy's restaurants in the area. They've struck deals with football player Jalen Daniels from KU, men's basketball players Dwan Harris and Jalen Wilson, women's basketball player Holly Kerskeeter, as well as volleyball player Caroline Bien. They're all going to have their face on the side of the 23rd Street Wendy's in Lawrence now. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Love that. Previously, it had just been a gigantic poster of David McCormick last year. That's what was on the side of that building. So some cool NIL stuff for KU. Michael Swain, by the way, who we'll talk to again next Tuesday. Dan talked to him a couple days ago.
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
No,
2 days.
2 days ago. You're right. Time flies.
I've gotten a handful of things wrong today, but I know what day of the week it is. That's the one thing I'm certain of. I had some good stuff over at fog.net today about KU's NIL beliefs and process and all that. Some good stuff to read if you're interested in that. But the big story from around the NCAA today is that we have a new president of the NCAA. Mark Emmert, we knew he was out as soon as they could find a president. But I have a new one. It is and I want to make sure I've got the correct title here.
He's the outgoing governor.
The outgoing governor of Massachusetts.
Yes, the state of Massachusetts. Charlie Baker, he's wrapping up his second term as the Republican governor of Massachusetts. He's been governor since January 2015, and his term wraps up in January. He'll start his new job March 1st. I believe it is the first time that the NCAA has hired a president without previous administrative experience within college sports. The bulk of Baker's adult life has been spent in state government. He also worked in healthcare administration for a time, played 1 year of college basketball at Harvard. That is his college sports connection. Typically, in the history of the National Collegiate Athletic Association, it has been a plus to have some sort of connection to the college sports world, whether you've been an athletic director or even just a university president or somebody along those lines. That was not a concern for the NCAA because they face, as we were talking about earlier when we had Jake Lebahn on for Crosstalk top of the hour, they're facing something of an existential crisis, and that existential crisis is very much political. So they needed a politician, and they went out and they got one.
And they needed someone who will stick up for them with some of their connections in the United States government, because the NCAA is in, I don't know, I think it's fair to say they're in a bad spot right now. I mean, they've taken loss after loss on a national, just legal scale. NIL has been a disaster for the NCAA. I don't say that because I think get rid of these NIL deals. I'm not in that camp. But the fact that they never set anything up, Congress essentially held their feet to the fire, and to get out of it, they just said, okay, every state, you handle it. You guys got this. Take care. We're not going to set anything up. We're not going to plan for this. That really screwed them over.
They ignored reality for as long as they possibly could, and now they can no longer do it. And what is starting to happen is the antitrust exemptions that the NCAA always felt like they had are slowly starting to be stripped away. They were always kind of implied. They were never enshrined legally. There was always just kind of implied that they were treated like they had an antitrust exemption. But those legal exemptions are now all expiring. Even as recently as this September, there had previously been a layer protection that granted an exemption to Ivy League schools that allowed them to prohibit merit-based scholarships to all students, including their athletes. So without that antitrust protection, there can be lawsuits that claim that schools are colluding with one another in order to depress the market for recruiting students.
Also, here's this. This is from Linda Livingstone, who is the president of Baylor, and she is the chair of the NCAA Board of Governors, which led the search for their new president. This quote about Charlie Baker is pretty transparent about why he is the choice here. Baker, quote, has shown a remarkable ability to bridge divides and build bipartisan consensus taking on complex challenges in innovative and effective ways. As a former student athlete himself, that's a stretch, husband to a former college gymnast and a father of 2 former college football players, Governor Baker is deeply committed to our student athletes and enhancing their collegiate experience. These skills and perspective will be invaluable, et cetera, et cetera. So clearly, they're trying to hype up, hey, he played college sports. His wife did. His kids did. Hey, look at that. Also, he works well with both Republicans and Democrats. Because what is, and this is not even a joke at this point, what is the one thing in this entire country that everywhere Republicans and Democrats agree on? This is not political satire. This is a fact at this point. The NCAA, the way it handles this business, is bad and needs a reckoning.
Remember when the Supreme Court voted in June 2021 to uphold their ruling that the NCAA could not collude to limit academic-based compensation they provide to athletes? That was a big, big ruling that really struck at the heart of the NCAA's whole amateur business model that they've been holding on to for decades and decades. Do you remember how that vote went? Now, we are aware that the Supreme Court is right now, there are 6 what you would consider conservative judges and 3 what you would consider liberal judges. A lot of the votes go down those party lines.
Yes,
generally, a lot of Supreme Court decisions these days are 6-3, maybe 5-4. Usually, if there's a decision, it's 5-4, but a lot of them are 6-3 lately. Do you remember what the vote was? June 2021.
I believe it was 9-0.
It was 9-0. It was Brett Kavanaugh, one of the 6 conservative judges who wrote the concurring opinion and basically just laid the smackdown on the NCAA.
Yep.
This is the money quote from Kavanaugh's opinion was, nowhere else in America can businesses get away with agreeing not to pay their workers a fair market rate on the theory that their product is defined by not paying their workers a fair market rate. Like,
yeah. Again, everyone agrees with this.
Yes, put that on the NCAA's tombstone. Honest to goodness, put that on the tombstone of the National Collegiate Athletic Association, that they could not evolve and they continued to try and hold on to a model that was ethically not justifiable, morally not justifiable, and now legally is not justifiable. And so the response from the NCAA when this all happened in the Supreme Court last year and a half ago, they were getting together with college sports leaders, presidents, athletic directors, and they have been lobbying Congress to draft new legislation that would include that antitrust exemption. So the NCAA member schools could then regulate how athletes are compensated. It is not terribly popular in Washington right now, as evidenced by the fact that, again, 9-0. Nothing is getting through that Supreme Court at 9-0. This is it.
Yeah.
This is the one thing. So, and then when you add to that letting the Ivy League exception expire, it's very clear that there doesn't seem to be a lot of political will to just let the NCAA keep cooking the way they've been cooking for a century.
Does this feel desperate to you?
Yes.
Because I think so too. I just don't know. And I don't, I say this without knowing exactly what the future of the NCAA or its successor looks like. Matt Brown, who we've had on the show before, writer of the Extra Points newsletter, and he actually had a newsletter today about Charlie Baker that I haven't gotten to read yet, but I know it was published earlier this afternoon. He's done a lot of talk about how, look, we can talk about teams rising up from Division II to Division I or FCS to FBS or, changes at the D3 or D2 levels, whatever. We have no idea what any of the divisions, any of the splits in each division, any of that might look like in 5 years, certainly not in 10 years. This whole thing could change in the very near future. And as negatively as most of the sports watching world, even a lot of people who don't watch or care about college sports have a very strong opinion on the NCAA. I don't think that Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor was like dying over Ohio State, Michigan, right? Like maybe she's a huge football fan. I kind of doubt it. Like I think Clarence Thomas is focusing his attention on other things on Saturday afternoons, but they still had very strong opinions about this. Anywhere you go, political commentators, regular people at home, very strong opinions about this. It feels like every week the NCAA takes another either literal, legal L or a figurative, perception-based L. Like, for example, the Arizona IARP ruling or the Memphis one before that, where these coach, or Louisville before that, where it was, yeah, Rick Pitino really didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, Sean Miller really didn't do anything wrong. Book Richardson, yeah, he probably shouldn't have done that, but otherwise, not really. Yeah, here's a meaningless figurehead fine, and you have one less scholarship for next year. Like, that's it. That makes the NCAA look even worse for dragging this out for years. And now college basketball people, college sports people just read about it in the newspaper, whatever. They say, what is this? Like, this is nonsense. The punishments before we got to the IARP era, if you want to talk about that, had people saying, what are you doing? This is unfair. This is wrong. Football, basketball, non-football and basketball revenue sports. I mean, nobody views this body in a positive light. And it at least feels to me like they have dug a hole that is too deep to get out of at this point.
What do they do effectively anymore, the NCAA? I think there's one answer to that, and it's organized championship tournaments.
Yes, and they do. Like March Madness, awesome. The women's March Madness, bigger and bigger attention every year. The FCS playoffs, fun. You know, the road to Omaha, all that, good stuff. You know who else could do that? Like a collection of the 10 best SIDs in the country.
Hell yeah, they
Easily.
could.
Get Gene, I know you got a lot on your plate. Get Gene Castle to run March Madness. It would be even better. Like, get, Washburn's SID, best in the business. Get that kind of person to run these things. They would be run just as effectively. Those are also people who know, they'll cut the chaff off because they've got things to do. They got places to be. They got things to do. It's going to be done well, timely, all organized. Other than that, the NCAA doesn't do anything right. And we have a great text here from the 785. The NCAA's concern for their student athletes extends only as far as not killing the golden goose. Yeah, pretty much. And they've proven that over time. And it's worked up until now. But now with all this legal pressure, legal losses, all of that, I just don't think it is viable long-term anymore. And I think this feels desperate to me.
Yeah, this is an acknowledgement by the NCAA that the Hail Mary, so to speak, is finding political consensus and getting a favorable ruling to justify their further existence. That is what they're trying to do here. That's the play. By hiring a politician with no background in college athletics, you are saying what we're doing administrating as an administrative body for college athletics might cease to exist if we can't get a win on Capitol Hill. So that is our primary focus right now. We need to get some wins on Capitol Hill, and we need to get them in a hurry. Otherwise, there's going to be no reason for us to exist.
There is a very obvious reason why President Linda Livingstone of Baylor made bipartisanship a point in the very first sentence in her statement about Charlie Baker. That was a very transparent decision right there. We've got to take a break for our national and local news here. We've got 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk. We'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We've got our Thursday night football preview for tonight, Seahawks versus 49ers, and we'll preview Chiefs versus Texans with the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. All that and more is coming up in the final hour of 580 Sports Talk after the news. Hey now, 1 hour to go on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. He is Dan Lucero. We are with you until 6 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. If you would like to chime in about anything we're talking about here in the 5 o'clock hour, you can do so on the Big O Tires text line. That number, as always, 785-272-9429. That's 785-272-WIBW. You can also chime in the YouTube comments section. That's right. We live stream the show on YouTube every day. The channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. Just click on the live stream and you can jump into the comment section, watch Dan and I on screen, and again, comment on anything that you want to about what we're talking about on the show today. We do have one comment on the YouTube about our watch discussion. This is from Dan in the YouTube comments. Shout out, Dan. Not that Dan, different Dan.
Yeah, shout out to my fellow Dan.
Apple Watch is a must-have. I'm an iPhone guy. Dan's an iPhone guy. No more pulling my phone out. Multiple watch faces, complications, Siri on my wrist. Boom. See, I feel like that'd be too much on my wrist. Like, I don't need my text showing up. It's too much for me. I also don't like the feeling of something on my wrist. Just frankly.
So the thing that's always complicated the whole watch thing for me is that they're supposed to go on your left wrist, and I am left-handed. And so I always wore my watch on my right wrist, and that got me some funny looks. Like, why is your watch on your right hand? I'm left-handed. Like,
yeah, I get that.
Leave me alone.
I think I've mentioned this before. My dad wears his watch in an unorthodox way. It's on his left wrist, but he wears it face down.
Oh.
So instead of lifting his wrist up and looking at the top of his wrist, he lifts his hand up and then looks at the bottom side of his wrist.
Huh.
That's how I thought, well, it's going to scratch up. Like, you're going to
That's what I would
break
think.
it, right?
If I had a $146,000 Patek Philippe watch, I would probably not wear it like that.
I would just not wear it. That's too valuable. I'm not putting that on my person.
Right.
It's much too valuable.
This is just going to stay in this box for me to show my friends.
I will say, though, the Apple Watches are extremely popular. Abby had wanted to get a watch. She got a Fitbit as her watch. Because she wanted to, do the step stuff, but wanted to have a smart watch with some of the things that come with it too. She got a Fitbit recently. That looks nice. I don't know. I like having it. As has been made clear many times, I'm extremely neurotic about certain things. Like, I don't know why I'm sensitive about my wrists, I guess, but like long sleeved shirts, I need them to be a certain length. Like, I need them to cover my wrist. If they only come up like halfway up the bone here, no, I gotta roll them. I don't know why. I'm extremely neurotic for some reason. I don't know what happened when I was a kid that made me that way, but some things I'm way too particular about. By the way, speaking of the live stream, because people commented on it yesterday, I went forward hat back-to-back days.
Yeah, you did.
Normally I don't do that. Shout out to the Ramblin' Wreck today, Georgia Tech.
I went with this Colorado College.
I don't think
fitted.
I've seen you wear that one before.
Yeah, this is digging in the crates for this one. I found this at a Lids near my hometown in Colorado for like $5, and it fit my head. It's a fitted. Yeah, spin it around for you. See, I could wear it backwards. Doesn't really look good when I wear a hat backwards usually. So
it's fine. Look. What is Colorado? Like, what's their mascot?
The Tigers.
Oh, okay.
CC Tigers. When I was in college, they were actually in the same conference as my alma mater, DePauw University, Greencastle, Indiana.
It's a long way to go.
It was quite a road trip. Yeah, that was one he had to fly, which meant we had to bus to Atlanta and bus to Birmingham because we only had enough in the budget, the basketball budget, for 2 flights, and we had to fly to the Texas schools. So there were three Texas schools and the one Colorado school. So, you have travel partners at Division III. But anyhow, Colorado College joined the conference, the Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference, it was known as the time. And they became the 4th team nicknamed the Tigers in the conference. 1/3, 33.3% of the conference was named the Tigers. DePauw, Colorado College, University of South Sewanee, and Trinity, Texas.
Wow. That's a lot. So you and your brother both went to Tigers schools?
Yes.
Because your brother went to Trinity, right?
Yes, yeah, correct.
And played baseball there. Couple texts here. One from the 785 that says, Brendan, you neurotic, push me over with a feather. Listen, okay? I know what I like. I'm a little particular about things, okay? And yes, somewhat neurotic. Also a text from the 913 about not liking things on my wrist. Don't get arrested. Yeah, that's I don't plan on that ever, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be wearing cuffs.
No, that's not in my future, I don't think. All right, with that, we've got Mitch Holthus coming up later this hour. We'll preview Thursday Night Football, but right now, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. As always, they are brought to you by our good friends at Blue Dot of Kansas. Go check them out online, all the different products and services they have available to you to make sure your home is as comfortable as it can be this winter. You can check them out online at bluedotkansas.com. First headline for me today, it is the Chiefs injury report. Kadarius Toney with a hamstring limited again today. Najee Johnson was upgraded from full to limited, not really expecting him to be needed in this game, but he was upgraded to full, so that's good in case he is needed at the last minute. Derek Nottie with an Achilles added to the injury report. However, he was a full participant today. So everyone was able to go to some degree, which is good to see. Also, McCole Hardman was able to get out and practice yesterday. So the fact that he was able to get out there again, also good to see for the Kansas City Chiefs. As for the Houston Texans, they had a bunch of dudes who did not participate in practice today. That includes wide receiver Nico Collins, the second year in the league. He's dealing with a foot, did not practice. He's a nice player out of Michigan. Nice player. He's not super productive in college, but he was one of those guys who profiled well to be a better pro than collegiate player. He is not practicing. Not sure if he is going to be able to go this week. Guard Justin McCray, hamstring injury, did not go. Former Chief cornerback Steven Nelson, you know he is itching to get back out there on the field, although probably not because Patrick Mahomes is going to make him look awful. He is dealing with a foot. Dameon Pierce, we know he is not going to play. He's got an ankle injury. He's out 1 to 3 games, which is it's not usually how they phrase it in the NFL. No. That's a very NBA way to phrase it. He's not going to go this week. Derek Stingley, the number 3 overall pick in this year's draft, he has a hamstring as well, did not practice. Also, former Chief from this year, Taylor Stallworth, he was downgraded today, limited due to a calf yesterday, did not practice at all today. One good sign for the Texans, left tackle Laramie Tunsil, he DNP'd yesterday because of an illness. He was a full participant today. And wide receiver Brandon Cooks as well, due to a calf, no practice yesterday, was limited in practice today. Also limited rookie Kenyon Green. He was limited again for the second day in a row due to an ankle. So pretty beat up Houston Texans team coming to Arrowhead this weekend.
They got some of the fakest names I've ever seen in my life on this injury report. Roy Lopez, Kurt Heinisch.
I will be completely honest with you. I feel as though I know, at least by name, most of the rostered players in the NFL. Like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, offensive lineman, defensive lineman, whatever.
Yeah, I can give you something about him, right? Like, at least he's been in the league for a while.
Yeah.
Or, I remember him from college. Yeah, I know where he played college ball.
I have never until right now looking at Chiefs.com/team/injury report have I ever seen the names Roy Lopez and Kurt Heinisch. Never in my life. I know nothing about either of these two gentlemen.
Troy Hairston. This is like when you play 20 years on your Madden dynasty.
Yeah.
And all of the real players have retired.
I do not know any of these gentlemen. So the Texans pretty beat up. Chiefs doing okay heading into Sunday's matchup. We will talk more about this game coming up later on this hour with the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus.
First headline for me, a sad day in the world of women's college basketball. A pioneer has passed away, and one with strong Topeka ties. Billie Jean Moore, a Washburn Athletics Hall of Famer, passed away, I believe, today. She was most notable for being the first coach in women's basketball history to lead teams from 2 different schools to national championships, guiding Cal State Fullerton to the AIAW national title in 1970 and lifting UCLA to the AIAW title in 1978. She won 436 games over the course of her college coaching career that lasted from 1969 to 1993. She also was the head coach for the first ever U.S. Olympic women's basketball team in 1976, coached Pat Summitt, Ann Myers-Drysdale, Nancy Lieberman. That team won the silver medal. A 1978 inductee into the Washburn Athletic Hall of Fame, although she did not play sports at Washburn because it wasn't an option. She's still remembered as someone who was a Title IX pioneer, also a Highland Park High School graduate as well. So a great Topekan, Billie Jean Moore, passed away today, this morning, at the age of 79. Wanted to give a tip of the cap to a Washburn Athletic Hall of Famer and a trailblazer in the world of women's athletics.
No, that is obviously a very sad day for Washburn, for that family. That's kind of crazy to think about. Like, I grew up in a generation where women played sports. Like, I played sports with girls my whole life.
It's hard
there were
to
girls
believe.
who played baseball when I was a kid.
It is hard to believe that you can hear a story about, well, she didn't play sports in college because it was not an option for her. And we're talking about like the 60s.
Yeah. I've heard stories from Larry Latimer, the coach who does our high school basketball games with us. And he's told me stories before about growing up in Iowa when girls played a different version of basketball.
Yes, 6-on-6.
Half court, 6-on-6 basketball, which I had never heard of. I brought that up at one point. I was talking about something completely different with my mom, similar generation to Larry. And she mentioned growing up playing, she grew up in Chicago, playing a similar sport. Like, oh yeah, we didn't play basketball like the boys did. Like, wait, this was a thing? I thought it was just like a weird Iowa thing. No, that was what they did. Like, oh,
3-on-3 on one end, 3-on-3 on the other. Yeah.
You play this.
You couldn't cross midcourt.
You play this other like weird basketball. Like that's crazy to me. But to me, I grew up in the late 90s. I was born in 94. So by the time I started playing sports and stuff in the late 90s, early 2000s, like,
you take it for
granted. Doing everything.
You take it for granted now, but you take those opportunities for granted because of coaches like her.
Wow, that's very, very, very cool. Next headline for me, we've got some news and notes on the college coaching front here on our 580 Sports Talk headlines, brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. Couple really interesting notes, I think. Number one, Drew Brees is being hired as an interim assistant coach for his alma mater, Purdue. He said he reached out and he wanted to help out at Purdue during their coaching transition. They, by the way, I don't know if we got to this, hired Ryan Walters, the defensive coordinator at Illinois. But Purdue fans online have been super mad about this because I guess their AD was like, we're going to make a big splash hire. We can spend with the best of them. Ryan Walters is an awesome hire. He was one of the best defensive coordinators in the country 2 years running, finalist for the Broyles Award. That's an awesome hire. So, and Purdue fans, we thought we were going to get Chris Kleiman. We thought we were going to get someone else.
No. Know your lane, Purdue.
Yeah.
Like, understand who you are and where you are in the pecking order. It is extremely strange to see Purdue hire a defensive coach.
That is true.
They haven't done that literally since the 80s. Like, you go back even before Joe Tiller. Like, you got to go way, way back for the last time Purdue hired a coach with a defensive background. But I think Ryan Walters is going to do great, and not just because we were classmates at Grandview High School.
He was a few years younger than you?
No, we graduated the same year.
Oh, you were in the same class.
We were in the same class.
I feel like I remember you telling me stories about that.
So he's got a long way to go to live up to my coaching legacy in the NCAA. Years and years of playing NCAA football, video games. I've probably won somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 national titles. He's got a way to go to match that, but I trust he'll do I think he's going to do a fantastic job in West Lafayette.
That's an awesome hire for them. But while they're transitioning from Jeff Brom to Ryan Walters, Drew Brees said, hey, I want to help out. So he is going to be an assistant on-field coach for their bowl game, the Citrus Bowl, and he got a waiver from the NCAA. He will be allowed to recruit going up to that period. Now, the dead period for in-home visits is coming up here shortly, within the next couple of days, with National Signing Day coming up a week from yesterday, or the early signing day anyway. But that seems pretty huge if you're Purdue and you're Ryan Walters. Like, hey, Drew, can you go talk to our quarterback recruits and our receiver recruits and please tell them to come to Purdue? Like, even if he's only going to be around for a few days, that's huge. And for what it's worth, he is only going to be around for a few days. He was on WWL AM in New Orleans. I believe that's out of New Orleans today. It is. Thought it might be Baton Rouge. He told hosts on that station he has no interest in being a coach for his future career. He just wanted to help out at Purdue. Like, hey, let me do my old alma mater a favor. He has got to be bored out of his mind after NBC said thanks but no thanks about returning this year. So that's a pretty cool story, though. And if you are a recruit being, recruited by Purdue right now, I'd be pretty sick to have Drew Brees show up at your house right before Christmas. Here's the other big note from coaching today. Bobby Petrino is leaving Missouri State, where he's won plenty of games the last couple of years, and is now going to be the offensive coordinator under Barry Odom at UNLV. Yes, that Bobby Petrino is now going to live and work full-time in Las Vegas.
Sounds great. Give me a TV camera crew. Make a documentary out of this.
No way that could go poorly. Oh, my God. Significant local tie to that one. KU opens its season next year, September 2nd, Saturday, September 2nd, taking on Missouri State. They will have a new head coach.
Last one for me on the Blue Dot of Kansas headlines this evening. A little bit more NFL injury news. Talking quarterbacks. Sounds like Lamar Jackson will once again be on the shelf for the Ravens when they take on the Cleveland Browns on Saturday afternoon. He'll miss his second consecutive game. The good news for the Ravens is his backup, Tyler Huntley, has cleared concussion protocol and would appear to be on track to start for the Ravens as they try and hold on to their lead in the AFC North, taking on the Browns in Cleveland on Saturday. Jets quarterback Mike White says there's no doubt he'll play on Sunday when the Jets take on the Detroit Lions. Jets battling for a wild card spot in the AFC against the red hot Lions. White took a bunch of big hits in the loss to the Bills and is dealing with a sore rib, but he says there's no doubt he'll be on the field. Meanwhile, still some question over who the Steelers will start when they take on the Panthers on Sunday. But wide receiver Deontay Johnson says he'd like to see Mason Rudolph get a chance to play, telling the media, quote, "Yeah, I want to see him play," referring to Mason Rudolph. You will note that Mason Rudolph is not the backup quarterback for the Steelers. Kenny Pickett is their starter. He suffered his second concussion in 8 weeks in the loss to Baltimore on Sunday, and his status is in question. Mitch Trubisky is the backup. He played in that game, but sounds like at least one Pittsburgh pass catcher would like to see QB3 get a chance.
Mason Rudolph sucks, man. He is awful. I didn't think he was...
I feel like we've seen his movies.
Yeah, we've got the tape. I didn't ever think he was all that great in college. Like, I thought that was mostly Gundy and a bunch of really good receivers, not really Mason Rudolph being good. But that tells you what that team thinks about Trubisky, that now this guy can't play. Tough scene for the former number 2 overall pick in the draft. By the sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good.
Last thing I had, one quick college basketball headline. Texas Tech's got some issues right now. There have been some rumors that there might be some issues behind the scenes right now with that team. They had a key player announce that he is going to transfer out.
Fardaws Aimaq, yeah.
Fardaws Aimaq, who transferred in, so he will be looking for his 4th school. Played last year, good player, has not played yet this year. Texas Tech has sorely missed him. According to multiple sources, he's transferring out this year. He is eligible to play this season. And according to Jake Weingarten of Stock Risers, he is eligible to play immediately. So, like, if he said right now, in a team that he is rumored to be interested in is Illinois, if he commits to Brad Underwood and signs on, like, today, he could play Saturday.
Wow.
That is a very strange case. I assume that's because he hasn't played yet this year.
Yes. And apparently there was a dispute behind the scenes between Aimaq and head coach Mark Adams about he felt like Adams was trying to rush him back from the injury that has not enabled him to play. And that difference in opinion has led to Aimaq changing schools again.
Not great for Texas Tech. They have not gotten off to the start I think they were expecting this season. That does it, though, for our 580 Sports Talk headlines, brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Blue Dot. Check them out online. Their website is bluedotkansas.com. We'll take a break. Mitch Holthus will join us in about 10 minutes. But right now, after this commercial break, we'll preview Thursday Night Football here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan with you, 528, 580 Sports Talk, Thursday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Mitch Holthus will join us here in just a matter of moments. But first, our weekly preview of Thursday night football. It's coming up tonight. 49ers at the Seahawks, Lumen Field. Is it still Lumen Field?
Yes, it is.
49ers are favored on the road by 3.5. The 49ers defense has been incredible all year, especially of late. They've clearly got confidence in Brock Purdy to run that offense. Not that he's asked to do a whole lot, but it worked last week. It worked when he had to come in against Miami as well. The Seahawks are struggling. Their defense has been brutal recently. Geno has come back to earth a little bit. But this is the NFC West. And more than maybe any other division in football, weird things happen in the NFC West. And it feels like there are these matchups like Shanahan is better than McVay, who is better than Kingsbury. Like there's this whole circle of suck going on. I don't know exactly what the current ties are between Pete Carroll and Kyle Shanahan. But
I do.
This is a weird division.
I do. Carroll's 10-3 against Kyle Shanahan.
Well, there you go. That would lead you to think maybe plus 3.5 is a little tempting tonight.
The only problem is there's one thing that the Seahawks absolutely cannot do right now, and that is stop the run. And there is one thing that the 49ers are very confident in at all times, and that is their ability to run the ball. So I do not like this matchup for the Seahawks. However, short week, need to win, a little more desperation probably on Seattle's side. There's film on Brock Purdy now, and he's not 100%. This could be a very low-scoring football game, and if Geno Smith can pull a couple of rabbits out of the hat against this outstanding 49er defense, not as ridiculous a phrase as it would have sounded when the season began, then the Seahawks are capable of protecting their home field. But if the 49ers can establish themselves on the ground, it's going to be tough. I am hopeful that the Seahawks win and start NFL Week 15 off right. And you can start NFL Week 15 off right with NFL same-game parlay insurance from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. It doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or you already have an account. You get free bets back if your 4-leg Thursday night same-game parlay misses by 1 leg. NFL same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payday. Here's the 4-leg parlay that Brendan and I have put together and think is a good play for you tonight. The under 43.5 points. Brock Purdy, under 216.5 passing yards. Geno Smith, under 15.5 rushing yards. And Brandon Ayuk to score a touchdown anytime. That 4-leg parlay is plus 1729. That means a $10 bet would win you $172.90. And if you bet that parlay and one of the legs flops, then you get free bets back. You can build your own or choose from one of the popular SGPs built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. However you want to play, you can bet the NFL on Thursday night with a same-game parlay. Just sign up with my promo code Lucero if you don't already have an account. If you already have FanDuel, you're all set. Just sign in to see what you've got. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You must be 21 and present in Kansas. Refund issued as non-withdrawable free bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Max free bet $25. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
If you had to pick right now, are the Seahawks going to make the playoffs or not?
I would still lean yes, because I think they can get 2 more wins, and I think one of either New York or Washington is going to stumble down the stretch.
I think the Lions are hard charging, pushing for a spot, but they also have not ever been there before with a coach who's never been there before.
Also, they got to go win on the road.
Yeah, which Jared Goff, we'll see about that. I'm with you, too. I do think the Seahawks sneak in at this point. We've got to take a break. Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, will join us coming up after this commercial here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk. We'll be joined shortly by Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, as we are every single week here, Thursday, bottom of the 5 o'clock hour, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union as we look ahead to Chiefs and Texans coming up this weekend. It's kind of a rarity for the Chiefs. Not only do they have a noon game, which I think we tabulated, or Dan did anyway, I don't want to take credit for it, that they've only now played 3 noon games this season as of Sunday. And they're also home for the first time in several weeks. 3 straight road games for the Chiefs. You don't see many road trips like that in the NFL. Maybe back-to-back, but you don't often see 3 consecutive road games. But that does line up fairly favorably for the Chiefs. Final 4 weeks, they'll go 2-2 away. Or I'm sorry, they will go away this week versus the Texans, then home for 2 against the Seahawks and Broncos, then the Raiders away. So I misread. We have another away game this week. That is the 3rd of 3.
Yeah.
That's weird. You don't see that all that often.
No, it's extremely rare. And also kind of rare for it to only be the 3rd noon kickoff. Indianapolis in week 3. And then the Jacksonville game. I forget which exactly week that was, but those are the only others.
Although now the Chiefs are scheduled for 3 consecutive noon kicks because we have the Texans at noon this week, the Seahawks at noon the week after on Christmas Eve, and then the Broncos at noon on New Year's Day, which I know it's Patrick Mahomes and you want to put him in the most viewed windows, but by the same token, Texans cross-conference matchup versus the Seahawks and against that terrible Broncos team, those should be at noon.
Yeah.
Because the Chiefs should roll in all of them. You would think they would roll in all of them. So, and again, we'll get to Mitch Holthus here as soon as we can get Mitch on the phone for our weekly chat brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Obviously, this week in the NFL is the start of the Saturday games. If you are a multi-screen person like myself, like Dan, 2, 3, you're going to need all of them this weekend for all of the football. We've got so many college bowl games that are happening on Saturday, 6 of them on Saturday, in fact. Plus, we've got the NFL games, 3 of them on NFL Network. Colts-Vikings is the early game. Not a lot of interest there. I'm pretty much done with the Jeff Saturday experience. I've been done for a handful of weeks with that. I don't need to see the Colts anymore. I really don't. I won't be seeing that game anyway. I'll be in Lawrence at Allen Fieldhouse for the KU versus Indiana game. Super excited about that coming up on Saturday. Ravens, Browns. No Lamar Jackson, so that takes a little bit away from it. Tyler Huntley is banged up, but should be able to go for the Ravens. The nasty man is playing for the Browns, although not really playing well for the Browns.
No, playing terribly.
Yeah.
It turns out a 2-year sabbatical, 2.5-year sabbatical from football because you couldn't keep it in your pants wasn't maybe the best idea.
Watson threw 2 games since returning against a terrible Houston team and in a 2-score loss to Cincinnati, both on the road. He has put together 38 of 64. That's just 59% for 407 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and an 0-2 record. That's not good. That's, in fact, quite bad. He was better against Cincinnati, 26 of 42. That's 62%, 276 yards, a touchdown, a pick. His team's not very good around him, but yuck. I mean, he's averaging through 2 games 6.4 yards per attempt. That is not a good number. So, I don't think there's a whole lot of intrigue in that game either, to be completely honest with you. The Saturday night game is a really good one, Dolphins and Bills. That game obviously has a lot riding on it. 7:15 coming up on Saturday night. There's a lot of intrigue in that game. I'm hopeful it ends up being a good game. There was a report today, and I have not since looked this up, but that there could be as much as 9 feet? I thought I saw feet, but that seems outrageous. A lot of snow is coming to Buffalo this weekend. And we talked about it on yesterday's show, I believe, when we were talking about possible playoff matchups, that Miami last week had heaters on its sideline while playing on the road indoors in Los Angeles against the Chargers. That does not seem to bode well for their ability to handle the cold. And I know sometimes the cold weather stuff can be blown out of proportion because you've got, Tyreek Hill played in Kansas City his whole career up until this year. And they've got guys who played at Ohio State. Raheem Mostert, their best running back probably, he played his college ball at Purdue, and West Lafayette can get pretty cold. I mean, these guys have played in cold weather before, but like their style of practicing in the cold weather was to jack up the AC to 50-something degrees in their indoor facility. Like, I don't know that those boys are built for that Buffalo cold. But then again, Buffalo's offense is more built for warm weather too. Like,
yeah, it really is.
Run deep, we'll chuck it down the field to Gabe Davis or 15 yards on a deep out to Stephon Diggs. I mean, that doesn't exactly scream built for snow. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to look for the Bills either. That's, I think, clearly the most intriguing game of the weekend. I think technically by default, Falcons Saints is intriguing because the AFC or the NFC South is just so wide open. I mean, I don't want to watch either. Although you do get to see Desmond Ridder, so that's at least got a little amount of intrigue to it. Titans Chargers, that game has playoff implications. Sunday Night Football, Giants Commanders. That's your next biggest game of the week, I would think. Bengals Buccaneers should have more interest than it does, but
yeah, it's the Nance Romo game.
Yeah,
but God, the Buccaneers are so unpleasant.
They are. They're just no fun to watch. They're a completely unenjoyable, miserable football experience. And frankly, I am at a point in the season where we've had a lot of those. I don't think we need more miserable football experiences. And that is what the Bucs are pretty much without fail every single week. I was going to mention in terms of who we get this weekend on TV, obviously here in Topeka, we will get the Chiefs game at noon on Sunday. Everyone gets all the Saturday games too. So Colts, Vikings, Ravens, Browns, and Dolphins, Bills. Everyone gets those on NFL Network on Saturday. Sunday's games, we will have Kansas City versus Houston. That's a no-duh. Kevin Harlan on the call that one, so shout out to us for getting that. And then we'll also get the Nance Romo game, Cincinnati versus Tampa Bay. Get more Joe Burrow in the national window. As for the Fox game, it'll be the early window on Fox. Here in Topeka, we are going to get Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson calling Dallas-Jacksonville. I don't remember those two teams ever playing before.
Dallas and Jacksonville.
Like, I feel like those uniforms have never been on the field at the same time.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, that might be the single most like random NFL matchup you can possibly come up with.
Yeah. I mean, I know they play every 4 years, but I don't have any recollection of any Cowboys-Jags game from ever before. If you don't want to watch that game and would rather get a late game, if you drive one county over, if you want to drive across, I guess technically that's 40 highway, you want to go past the service station in Douglas County, you would instead get Raiders Patriots as the late game. And as someone who lives in that county one over, I hate that. I don't want that game. I would rather have Cowboys Jags earlier in the day. So I'm going to have to take my rabbit ears and flip them from one side of my apartment to the other to see if I can pick up the Topeka stations. That's essentially what I'm stuck doing. Frustrating as all get out. We are still waiting to see if we can get Mitch Holthus on the line for our weekly conversation. Mitch, obviously a busy man. It happens sometimes. So we'll see if we can grab him here in the next few minutes. Obviously, coming up tomorrow, we will get you a further preview of all things NFL football coming up this weekend with our weekly picks and all of that. By the way, the picks competition, not a good week for us last week. No. I don't know if we got to that on Monday.
No,
not a good week.
Fulton, the only winner of the week, which is that tells you all you need to know.
Catching strays late in the show. Yeah, we all went 1-2. You, me, and Jake. We all went 1-2. Fulton went 2-1. However, I don't know how we're going to do it now with bowl games.
We each pick a bowl game.
Okay.
There's a bunch of bowl games this weekend. We can do it.
All right. That's fair.
Yeah, everybody picks a bowl game. At least one. There's plenty of bowl games going around.
All right. That's fair. Yeah, there's a ton. 6 of them on Saturday. There's a few that are significantly interesting. For some reason, I really did think there was only one game involving a Power 5 team this weekend, but I think all but one game involves a Power 5 team. Plus, you got the 2 games tomorrow. Here's what frustrates me about the smaller conferences and their bowl tie-ins, and just the concept of bowl tie-ins, period. So the Bahamas Bowl, that's kind of become a big deal. Like the last game of the season for Miami, Ohio, they won their final game to guarantee a spot in that game.
Yeah.
Like, that's fun. That should be the
next
best in. in the match.
We get to spend a week in the Bahamas. Like that was a whole thing.
But then the second game of the day tomorrow, the Cure Bowl, UTSA and Troy are two of the best G5 teams in the country. They should be able to get a better game than the Cure Bowl at 2:00 Central Time in Orlando. They deserve something better than that. We'll talk more college football tomorrow, but right now it is time to talk all things NFL, all things Chiefs versus Texans with the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. That is Mitch Holthus. He joins us every Thursday on the show as a courtesy of both Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. And Mitch, I've got to imagine after the game on this past Sunday against the Broncos got to 27-0 and all the vibes are good, everyone's feeling great, I can't imagine you expected that game would end with just a one-score deficit.
And actually, I think if you go back and listen to our broadcast, we were getting kind of relaxed. And I'm just thinking, okay, this will be 40-7. But one play, it just is a great indication of how the National Football League works. It's different than most professional sports and any other college or high school sport. That one single play can be so dynamic, and the interception thrown by Mahomes, where he gets kind of decoy, Josie Jewell, he just burned them and the Bronco linebackers in the first quarter for a huge gain to Kelsey that broke the record for yards after catch and the 10,000 mark, that he thinks he can do it again. And this time Jewell made a nice little adjustment, jumps the route, and the whole game changed. Because then now all of a sudden Denver has got life. If Mahomes doesn't throw that pick and the Chiefs don't even score, but just eat up time and it's 27-0 or 3, that's still going to be a 40-10 or something game. But that single play was so impactful that it kind of flipped the whole tenor of the game.
So then knowing that and knowing that there was an opportunity to just kind of, step on the throat of the Broncos and not let them back in, to me, I think of then the importance of a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, who had another very solid game. I mean, he has been solid at worst for now 4 or 5 weeks in a row. To have that option there as a guy to, hey, we know the Chiefs are going to throw the ball, and they should. They've got Patrick Mahomes back there at quarterback. They've got one of the best offensive game planners in all time, and Andy Reid calling the plays, and a great offensive coaching staff too. But to have a guy, Mitch, like Isaiah Pacheco, who has gotten into, I think, an area of trust with this offense, who is playing so well, who has been effective and efficient running the ball, his ability and his, ascendance this year, I would imagine shows, even more importance in that running game, because now if you're in a similar situation, maybe the thought process is, hey, we can trust number 10 in the backfield. We know we can give him the ball to burn off some clock, to step on the throat, grind the great game down, whatever cliche you want to use. Do you feel a similar way that the ascendance for Pacheco has maybe given a little more faith that the Chiefs can close out games more readily going forward?
It's an excellent point. It's just right behind your play-by-play call of Inman and St. Mary's. But it's a excellent point from the standpoint of there is a macro micro answer to your inference and question. The micro is to have 2nd and 10. During the game, I'm giving the computation. If the Chiefs don't get a first down, they can run 128 off the clock, but the Broncos will have 32 seconds back after the punt if they fair catch the punt. Well, okay, just put all that aside because Pacheco just won the game. Now, that's the micro. The macro version is what you've alluded to. And trust is the big word here. And you have to have a lot of trust in a running back, whether they're a rookie or a veteran, to say, we're putting the game on your shoulders. They know you're going to run it. We know we're going to run it. The world knows you're going to run it. And you're going to have to protect the ball and get us what you can, but we've got to get a first down here to end the game. And when a kid like Pacheco said, oh, no, I relish this, it's not just me trying to be braggadocious, but give it to me and watch what happens. For him to make that move has a macro meaning that could go into the playoffs. And the Chiefs haven't had Isaiah Pacheco-ish kind of running really since Damian Williams and the run to immortality in Super Bowl 54. It was missing in 20 and 21. Well, it's here in 22, and it's in the form of a 7th-round rookie.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us every Thursday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk, thanks to our friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, we were discussing earlier today that Chiefs are actually one of the most proficient defenses in the league at limiting the big play, 10-plus yard runs and 20-plus yard passes. They are tied for the third fewest of those allowed in the league so far this season. And you saw some proficiency in that against the Broncos. You saw, obviously, the pass rush have a big game. And yet, there were still 28 points on the board for Denver, a season high for them at the end of the night. What is the next step, the big step this defense has to take to put some of the positives together and turn it into a 60-minute effort that will pair and be complementary with the offensive efforts?
3 answers. Red zone defense. What you've just alluded to with the limiting the big play is really a testimony to the way that this Chiefs team tackles. Now, they missed some in that 67-yard screen to Marlon Mack, but generally this is a good tackling team. The DBs tackle as well as Nick, or close to as good as Nick Bolton. But red zone defense is not good. They're last in the league. And so think of the Denver game. If you hold Denver to threes, there are 2 red zone touchdowns that come to mind from them that if you hold them to threes, it's still going to be a rout. They're not even in the neighborhood. And the Chiefs have somehow got to, and I talked to Spags about it today in a one-on-one that's not going to be aired. But we discussed it in that they've got to become threes. Sevens have to become threes or takeaways. One of the little quoted stats of last year for the Chiefs to get to the AFC Championship game and win the division was the fact they had 4 red zone takeaways. They were taking the ball away in the red zone. This year, they're not taking it away, and teams are just rolling in for touchdowns, almost to a 70% percentage, which is an alarming rate. So the next 4 weeks, and starting with the game in Houston, there's 2 things I would love to see happen. One is the giveaway takeaway ratio at -5, which does not usually translate to 10 and 3. It's somewhere near equilibrium by the time you start the playoffs. And the other would be red zone defense. You asked, that's it. Red zone defense. Winning battles in the red zone and holding a team to a 3 is a big win, especially when you're playing the great teams.
The Houston Texans are the opponent on Sunday as the Chiefs make their 3rd straight road trip and head to Houston to take on the 1-win Texans. And even though they do have the worst record in the NFL, they are still an NFL team and practice and put on their pads the same way that the Chiefs do. The Chiefs avoided the trap against the Broncos and came out of Denver, a tough place to play always, with a win last week. What is the most important factor for them against this Texans team to make sure that they do the same?
Well, all you have to do, if anybody's doubting your question or your inference, would be to just watch the Cowboy game. I mean, they should have won the game. They're inside the 5. They're at the 1. And if they get a 2-score lead, that's over. I rewatched the game as I was working in my home office when it was a Tuesday night. I had it on while I was working. And they're showing close-ups on the sideline of Mike McCarthy, who looks like he has got the worst case of the flu you could ever have. Like he's just standing there going, we're going to lose this game and this is going to be a season changer. And the Texans didn't pull it off, but they were that close. So there's your warning. So don't anybody think, hey, gosh, got to blow them out. If it's not 40-0, this is a loss. I mean, the Chiefs Kingdom's got to get a little bit out of that mode. But I would also tell you that this Texan team, so how could they win this game? The biggest issue would be protection of Pat Mahomes and trying to avoid negative plays. The Texans are 1-11-1, but their pass rush rate or pressure ratio is 3rd in the NFL. Only ahead of them are the aforementioned Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Then it's the Texans. Here they come. And they got a dude named Malik Collins who had a year with the Raiders. And before that, he was with, I believe, the Titans. But Malik Collins is a kid from Kansas City, played at Center High School on the Missouri side. He was a wrestler, played at Nebraska. He wrestled in high school. He was 48-0 as a wrestler. And he wreaks havoc on the interior. Okoronkwo, who almost beat the Cowboys, he hit the arm of Dak Prescott to force the interception that should have led to the Texan victory. And then Jerry Hughes on the other side. When they go to that group, where Collins is in the middle, like eating 3 dudes up, and you're bringing pressure from both sides, the Texans are all you want. The other thing is Jalen Petrie at safety, who I love coming out of Baylor. But he is like a Derwin James Jr. type. Athletic. He'll hit you in the next week. He can cover. They move him all over the place. He's like a wild card for them. So there is very, very, again, the danger on this Texan team that Patrick Mahomes and the offense, all the offense and the offensive line must account for.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Chiefs. He joins us every single Thursday, brought to you by our good friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. It'll be Chiefs versus Texans, the final game of a 3-game road trip coming up this Sunday. Mitch, unfortunately, we got to dip out here before we hit the break at the end of the show, but we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy Houston this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Thursday.
Yeah, I'm getting ready for the two-headed monster. 2 game plans on defense with 2 quarterbacks. Last week they played 32 snaps apiece. Exactly. I've never seen that in the NFL.
No, that is truly bizarre. That is Mitch Holthus. He is the best of the best, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. And that is going to do it for us on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 5:30. We'll preview the NFL weekend. Matt Derrick will join us as we look ahead to the Chiefs and Texans one final time, and we will get to so much more. So until 3 o'clock tomorrow, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. You've been listening to another edition of 580 Sports Talk.